All right, I'm going to go into board book and start leading there for those of you following along. And you are welcome to not follow if you would rather lead yourself. All right, so we will start our meeting of the Greater Albany Public School Board of Directors on Monday, December 13th. Am I doing that right? 14th. And 14th, I apologize, at 7:02 p.m. And if you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chris. All right. And just another welcome to our newest board director. Glad to have you joining us on our first official full meeting. So
thank you.
Good to see you here again. Thank you.
You didn't scare me away last time. So.
That's good. That's good. All right. So board business, we are going to start with a real quick recognition that I know has gone out via email already, but I wanted to acknowledge it here at the board meeting again, just because I think it's very significant, and want to recognize Superintendent Goff as she has received the NAACP D. Joan Collison Distinguished Services Award. And Superintendent Goff was presented with that award during the NAACP Freedom Fund banquet that was held annually just a couple weeks ago now. And the theme for that event was Get in Good Trouble. And they had, it was a virtual event this year, and they had lots of performances and awards, but I think it's important to recognize this is in recognition of white allyship in racial justice and equity work, and was presented by the Corvallis Albany branch president, Angel Harris, and then Dr. Brooke Collison in memory of his wife. And this was the statement that was made here. So Joan Collison was known for many things, but as a community volunteer and member of the Corvallis Albany NAACP, she fought for the causes she believed in, and she was not afraid to take on anything or anyone who threatened the freedom of all peoples and everywhere. The D. Joan Collison Distinguished Services Award is presented annually to a person who, through goodwill and understanding, represents the very best of our social injustice fighters, a public service-minded person reducing the justice gap with honor in extraordinary times, various talents, and a passion for social equity for all peoples. And in presenting the award, Dr. Brooke Collison said the NAAC is presenting this recognition to Superintendent Melissa Goff in saying thanks for thinking of students of color, for those on the margins, for racial and ethnic views of education, for justice issues, and for emphasizing racial and linguistic education equity in Greater Albany Public Schools. That's a significant accomplishment, and is something that Superintendent Goff should be very happy about receiving, and we are all very proud of you for those efforts. And we've seen a lot of work in that regard since you've been here, and we very much appreciate it. I'm glad you are representing gaps in that way. So thank you very, very much, and congratulations on that recognition. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I am really humbled that the NAACP would honor me in that way. So thank you.
You're welcome. All right. And then on to board work. We had discussed our board goals in a work session later last week. And we have come up with approved goals for the 2020-2021 year. And we will be, I don't know, do we need to approve these here? I didn't see. No, I think we did that at our meeting on last week, so we should be good. Those are going to be presented formally, and we will go ahead and continue our work. The next steps to these being a future discussion about how we will implement those goals and what actions we specifically want to take surrounding them. And then in addition to that, how we might go about trying to track and provide some information about how we're doing at meeting those particular goals. So are there any questions from our board members or anyone else? No? Okay. Moving on to superintendent evaluation. And I'm going to, I'm going to mention Krista Parent was hoping to be able to join us tonight, and she is not able to attend. So we are going to let Director Ward go through a brief kind of update on where we are currently. And then I think we have a couple things maybe to just discuss with the group as we move forward with that. So I will let you take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yes, unfortunately, Krista couldn't be with us today. She and I have been in contact. The documents that you have in Board Book were ones that were provided to you after our last board meeting. So they're documents related to the targeted feedback survey. So these are the questions that we would be asking those outside of the board to answer and to give input on. And so you'll remember that last year we did pretty much a 360, and that group was pretty broad. We'll narrow it down this year, but that was just an opportunity for you to look at those questions. Krista went through, it's pretty lengthy. I don't think there's some redundancy. I don't think that it needs to be as lengthy as the one that we used in the past. And she kind of went through and highlighted the ones that she thought were particularly relevant, or that kind of eliminated some of that redundancy as well. I'm personally fine with them. I didn't hear feedback from anybody over the course of the last 2 weeks. So assuming everybody's good with that, then I would just refer back to the timeline that we looked at before as far as next steps. And so that would be, as it stands now, January 11th, Melissa would be providing with us a mid-year report on how her goals are doing. And then by mid-February, we get into we'll have an evaluation tool as well. You've seen the standards that COSA recommends that superintendents are evaluated against, and we'll be able to use that as our tool. We'll also get the feedback from the feedback survey and be able to provide an evaluation to Melissa by March. So that's where things stand. I'm happy to answer questions. If there are none, I'll just keep working with Krista and keep bringing things back to the board and getting those different steps of the evaluation onto our agendas so that we can proceed through that process.
Did we have specific information, and I believe I talked with Superintendent Goff about this briefly, so I just want to bring it up here, some specific information either from Krista or I can't remember, I think it was from Krista, about some examples of how to incorporate some of these questions into the COVID-based year that we've had specifically, because it is very unique circumstances, I think, for the goals that we have and for what we're evaluating. I believe she provided some of that, correct?
She did, but just very recently. In fact, I just saw them this afternoon.
Okay.
So why don't I send those, make those available to Chris, and she can also send those out for you to look at. And some of those are, there's kind of, just looking at it briefly again this afternoon, I didn't have a chance to look at it really in depth, but kind of two things. One is maybe looking at the questions that we ask and how we phrase it, and then also a suggestion about just our approach, and probably a plea for perhaps a little more leeway, a little more grace, a little more compassion than, and that this was material that she provided to boards across the state. So it's not just, to GAPs, but just a plea to keep in mind the extraordinary circumstances that our superintendents have been working under this year. So yes, I'll make that available. That will go out to all of you this week.
That's great. And I believe OSBA is, kind of looking at the same things that they're trying to make sure that all the districts are looking at the uniqueness of the year in particular, and the fact that many of the goals that were set maybe for some at the beginning of that year versus where we've been able to go and what we've been able to do might look different. But then even in each of the categories, how to evaluate that category just slightly differently than the norm based on what we are dealing with. So I think that will be helpful. And so maybe if we get that provided to us, if we can look that over and see if we have any feedback or needs to get stuff out there before we get those surveys out, so that if we need to ask questions differently, we have some time to be able to put that all in place. When did the surveys plan to go out? We said January?
No, middle of February.
February, okay.
So February.
So we would have time to potentially discuss that at our next January at one of the meetings.
Absolutely.
Or both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And Superintendent Goff, did you have your hand up too for the...
Yes, I was just going to add to what Director Ward said. One of the pieces that Krista Parent closes the document with is that some board and superintendent teams have agreed to shift their evaluation to focus heavily on how the superintendent has handled safety and continuation of educational services following COVID-19. So something for us to think about, and certainly an area that would be reflective of where most time has been assigned.
For sure. Thank you. And Director Ward, thank you for all your work on this. I know it can be a lot of work when you're bouncing things back and forth and we only get to meet so often. So I appreciate your help with that.
Sure.
Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, we will move on to superintendent goals. Let me pull this one up here. And this is kind of the reminder of what we had for the 2019-2020 superintendent goals, which was for year one of the superintendent. And I don't know, Superintendent Goff, did you want to go through this, or do you want me to? Or
so yeah, I don't think we need to go through it again.
Okay.
We went through it when we last discussed this. So the suggested goals that we discussed are in the second section there under the year two. One of the things that we discussed was alignment with your goals. And now that your goals have been set, I think that that largely those three goals would align with the goals that you have set.
And so those, as a reminder, were effective management, had a goal in there, and then inclusive practices.
Yes, we had promote and protect the welfare and safety of students and staff as the first goal. Second goal, build and sustain positive relationships with families and caregivers. And the third goal is build and sustain positive relationships with community partners.
Which I think those do definitely match up with some of the ones that we had put in there. And so we can also look at those, and if for some reason there's something additional that we feel like might need to be represented that's not, we could look at that. But
yeah, it would need to be done tonight because I'm supposed to report on my progress on these goals at the January 11th board meeting.
Okay, so why don't we leave them as is? And we'll focus on them for next time, which we did have a discussion about the board goals being most of them things that could carry over for us into the next year in some capacity. So I think that's fine too, because these are things that are going to continue and are things we can focus on for the next set of goals too. So are there any questions about the superintendent goals as they were provided from before? They were added here just because we were talking about the evaluations and everything else coming up here soon. So no other questions there?
Well, just on the measured by. So the measuring the outcomes, I think we can broaden some of those because they really focus in one area. But our relationship with the city, the superintendent's done really good with the police chief. So I think there's areas to broaden other than minority groups and just our chamber and Rotary. But like we've said, you and Jen are both on a committee for the county, and I know Melissa's worked with them a lot. She's worked with the police chief a lot. So just adding, getting a little more diversification, to use that word, of our community, because GAPS is the largest employer, as we know, and we touch a lot of different places.
Yeah, and I do think that this, the way this was written, it was some of the primary examples of things I think that we were working on, but I know it says, for example, and it leaves it open for additional ones, which I think there's many, many more of those relationships that we're continuing to work with and partnerships that we're continuing to make. I think that we did talk about the fact that even with our board goals, that going forward, we would have a little bit more discussion about the specifics of what we would be looking to do to meet those goals, and then also how we will go about providing ourselves some sort of metrics or performance to look at how we've done in meeting those goals. And I don't think that will be any different probably in how we address the goals for the superintendent going forward from this one, where we'll probably have a little bit more substance to the information that we provide with those goals going forward as well. As we know, we're finishing this particular group up and getting ready to do evaluations on it. But I think we've learned through both processes that we need to probably expand a little bit in our information for those two areas.
I agree. And then expanding on some of the goals that we talked about last year in executive session with the superintendent about like things we would like to see in the future. And some of those things probably have slipped our mind because
for this year
with COVID, everything is different. But just, before you review your employee of this year, you look at last year and say, okay, here's the goals that we wrote down, during the evaluation. Where on that benchmark did we complete them for this year?
I think part of the thing that's been interesting and difficult is most of the time superintendent goals must align with board goals. So when the board hasn't finished their goals, it's difficult to make goals that align with those. And then I would also, just add that I appreciate that we have specifically called out some of our families that had historically not had a voice in our district or felt like that was a way that they could engage. So I just appreciate the specific nature of calling out really families who we haven't been as successful engaging, because I know that's been some work that we've worked really hard on this year and found some success through partnerships. So I appreciate that some of that work is being specifically called out.
Mm-hmm. Director Ward.
Yeah, just to coattail on the first part of what you said, Lisa. When I was preparing for tonight, I was looking ahead at the timeline that we're using to guide our evaluative process of the superintendent. And on that, we're asking her to start preparing her goals in June. And in reflection, I think that's going to be a bit her goals for next year in June. And I think that's going to be I think we need to look at pushing that date back, but I also think that we need to commit as a board to getting our goals in place earlier too. And so, an August work session, maybe a beginning of September work session, that's that's when we should be doing that work, and certainly commit to having ours in place before we expect it of the superintendent.
And I think that's probably something we should calendar every year and make it be that we have a certain time frame in mind for when we want to do the board goals, and then right behind that, when do we want to have the superintendent goals done. So maybe we need to discuss what that looks like. For me, I would think even September is too late in the game. You know, I'd be looking at more like, which obviously we have elections that are going to happen in this particular year, and those folks will be on board in July. So to me, maybe August this year seems like the best time, and we don't typically have a ton of stuff in those summer months. So that might be a good time for us to say, let's plan for August to be kind of when the board finalizes their goals, and then we can do superintendent goals right behind that. And I think we should probably have that as our timeline each year. My hope would be that we are continuing to have discussions through this current process of what might carry over for next year, kind of automatically based on how late in the game we're doing it this year. It might be things that we actually want to see again for next year for the board, or in a slightly different capacity. And we can help kind of get that ready for this August, I think, in advance, as we're talking about stuff. And that might include some of what Director Aganaga was saying too, where we look back at some of the things that we've discussed in the past, and whether or not any of those are things that we want to look at bringing forward for the future too. So.
Right, I don't think that the process itself would necessarily be as lengthy next year. If we do carry over, which I think there's probably going to be a need for, but we should be earlier in the year about formalizing that.
Yeah. Okay. I might have that added to our calendar of meeting things so that we actually plan for it in advance. And then when we do our pre-planning, we know in advance. And then if we need to have a work session prior, we can schedule a work session prior at one of our summer meetings, and then plan to have a final by the end of August. So I'm sure Chris and Superintendent Goff are taking notes on that one. All right. Any other questions about the goals at this point, or comments? I'm not seeing any. Okay, that brings us to our school calendar. And Director Larry, I'm going to give it to you to see, do you have any additional information you wanted to discuss with us tonight? I know there's a couple things that we need to approve, I believe, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Chair Butzner and members of the board, as you know, there are preparations being made to move to a hybrid learning system sometime after the new year, whenever our counties are able to reach the metrics. Right now, that looks like a long shot, but each Monday, we learn what the new metrics were for the last 2-week period. And so sometime late in the day on Monday, the superintendent learns what the metrics were for the previous 2 weeks. When we hit the acceptable metrics to begin K-5 hybrid, we have 14 days to start that hybrid process. And so we need to move reasonably quickly. We need to be prepared to move reasonably quickly. But moving into a hybrid model is not going to just happen. It's not just a matter of coming back and filling our schools. There's a lot of preparation work going on, and much of that preparation involves us working with our employees and the employee associations on figuring out exactly how we're going to do that. You know, before school starts in the fall, in a typical school year, there's a lot of time spent on setup and classrooms and reviewing policies and practices and protocols, and how do we line up for lunch, and how do we go here, and how do we go there. And none of that has happened at this point. And so one of the things that we are looking at is how do we impact the calendar to allow our teachers and staff the time that they need to be ready for the students when we get into the hybrid. And so we believe that it's appropriate to give the staff 2 non-student work days immediately prior to starting the hybrid. The problem is, well, there are many problems with this, but the primary problem in terms of calendar is we won't know until really the week before we need these 2 days to prep. And so we can't establish them in solidly on the calendar at this time. There's no way to do that. I gave you several depictions of what these calendar pieces might look like in the attachments in the board packet. There were 3 documents there. One of them, the first one, was just a copy of the current adopted calendar. The second one, the second document showed the months of January and February and what these days would look like if, in fact, as we thought 6 weeks ago, that we might start on the 4th of January and at the semester for the elementary and secondary. Obviously, Superintendent Goff, you could chime in here, but I think what we learned today is that our numbers are nowhere near, and that we're not going to be starting up with elementary on the 4th of January. Am I accurate in that?
Yeah, so I was going to share that with the board in my report, but it's great to share now, more appropriate to do so. So Benton County in the last 14-day period had 301 cases per 100,000, and Lynn County had 506 cases per 100,000, and a 10.6% positivity rate. So given those numbers and given that we're entering into another holiday season, I am making the decision that we will not bring elementary back that first week after the holiday. That gives us the time to learn. Usually though they try and get it to us Monday afternoon, they're usually not telling us till Tuesday morning on that data. And so we'd be able to inform our staff on Tuesday whether we would be beginning school for elementary a week from the Thursday of that same week, if that makes sense. And Randy will kind of walk you through what that will look like. But if you have questions about that, we can talk about that, I guess, during my superintendent update. But that is the plan right now, is to not have elementary students back the week of the 4th. At the earliest, they would be coming back on the Thursday of the week of the 11th.
If metrics allow, if we meet the threshold.
Absolutely, completely dependent on metrics allow. So it's completely dependent on whether or not our county is able to find a way to get a handle on our current numbers.
Okay, so the third document in your packet basically shows the various iterations of how these days might be set up. The months of January and February have sort of multiple possibilities. There's the possibility of having a full 5-day week, the week that hybrid starts. If that were the case, then the 2 work days would be the following Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday would be a regular Wednesday with preparation, staff development, making contact with kids virtually, and Thursday would be the first day for students. In some cases, we have several weeks where Monday is a non-contract or holiday in the months of January and February. In that case, that calendar would be pushed back a day. And so the work days would be Tuesday and Thursday. Wednesday would be the normal Wednesday. 1 week in there, the first week of February, the beginning of the second semester, Monday and Tuesday are work days. In that scenario, the following Thursday and Friday would be the teacher work days in preparation for hybrid, and we would begin with students on the following Monday. So you have each of those laid out there as they would happen, but we will not know until the Monday previous that it's a go or no go. It's kind of like launching a spacecraft, I guess. We're just not going to know until that time. We're asking the board this evening to approve this recommendation so that we and our teachers and our students and families know what to expect when that Monday evening or Tuesday morning hits us and we've got the numbers and we can start into hybrid.
Can you give us a reminder on the hybrid model? Just because we have a new board director as well. And so I want to be clear that the hybrid model itself, what the hours are for the students. So if we're looking at elementary, going back that, and we're seeing hybrid Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, what is that scheduled in for those families?
So at the elementary level, students are on either an AM or a PM schedule, but they go to school every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesdays looking the same as they currently do.
So it's basically a half day every day.
Correct. Correct.
And that is just so that we can meet the criteria of having to have only so many students in the space at a time.
Correct. And so they'll be studying, they'll basically really be focusing on language arts and math along with limited other subjects in their in-person time, but they will have assignments to do it at their at home time as well. So so it will not only be limited to that, their learning won't only be limited to that time that they're actually in person.
And I appreciate you reiterating that, Chair Butzner, because there is still the requirement of 35 square feet per person in a space. And so class sizes will look about half, maybe a little more than half of what they're used to. So between, 14, 15 students, depending on the size of the classroom.
And then all of those individual cohorts of things that we were talking about before all play in here as well, where it's
Correct.
a certain teacher with a certain cohort and that stays the same. And so is this mostly planning for elementary to be back and not the other grades at this point?
Correct. So elementary would be the first back, which has been our plan and is actually required by the state of Oregon. So we can, while we're in the yellow zone, which is the zone we need to get into in order to start elementary back. Remember, we're in the red, then comes the orange, and then comes the yellow. So we're a ways away from that, quite a ways. But we can start back K through 5 students while we're in the yellow. We cannot bring back 6th through 12th grade students until we are in the green. So we know that we will start the little kids a little bit earlier. Our goal, if again, as Assistant Superintendent Harlan referenced, if our data allows us to do so, would be to bring back middle and high school at the semester still. We are still planning, that is still our timeline for doing that at this time.
Will also be on a set hybrid type of scheduling.
Correct.
All of the requirements that we had talked about before are still there in terms of the number of students that they can have contact with. Also, just as just to remember, Superintendent Goff just let you all know that in this county, in Lynn County, we had 505 cases per 100,000. To get elementary students back, we would need fewer than 100. So we're 5 times where the metric. And just as a reminder, that metric was also increased by about 3 or 4 times what it was previously. So that metric was already increased to help us meet, and we are 5 times beyond that already. We have doubled our case count in the last 3 weeks. In order to get 6 through 12 students back, it has to be 50 or fewer. And just for people to get kind of a scope of what we have talked about previously and what we're talking about now, and where we're at. So elementary comes back first because we can have a higher case count and bring elementary back. It has to be lower for secondary.
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there so that if other folks are listening in and, haven't heard this information before, I think it's important just to reiterate where we're at and what we're looking at. So basically we are being asked right now to approve this schedule. I think the third I have right now up on board book, that third attachment. And I think it's the easiest to see as far as what they would be looking at with the 3 different options, depending on which dates, if we even meet the metrics, which dates in January would be a potential for us to start. And so that's what they're looking at having in advance. Again, this is not a guarantee we'll even be at metrics level to be able to do this, but they need to have that plan in place ahead of time. So they're asking for our approval of this particular schedule layout. Does anyone from our board have any questions about the schedule as it was presented before we take a motion? Then I will, Director Roach. Good job using your hand in there.
Trying. Well, first off, I wanted to say I understand the work that goes into getting a classroom ready for kids, and for our amazing staff to be able to do that in 2 days is really incredible. So I just want to do a shout out to all of our both certified and classified staff for being willing to use that very little time, that precious time to get ready. Rita, you mentioned 14 days. Is that 14 days? Is that like school days, or if for some reason we're talking about spring break, you know, do those days count?
They do, because the metrics within the community can change over spring break. And so it's always the 14 days from the time that they say you can go to school. They're only okay with saying, I'm only giving you approval for 14 days.
Okay. And I assume if we were in a situation like that, we'd make accommodations in there for staff. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
And I'm assuming, obviously, as we move forward, as this potential date changes, we're going to get a new calendar similar to this each month. It's going to give us what it would look like at any given time. And I see Director Larry shaking his head, so I'm assuming that's what we will see going forward until we get.
Yeah, I do think we've covered, I haven't scoured the calendar that carefully, but I do think we've covered pretty much all of the iterations with these 3 examples, though.
Great. Perfect. So there is a motion in board book. I'm on that page now if one of the board directors would like to make a motion. Director Aganaga.
Make a motion to adopt the calendar changes as presented, allowing for staff to work on 2 days prior to the start of a hybrid learning model.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the calendar changes as presented, allowing for staff work days on 2 days prior to the start of hybrid learning. We will start with Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that one passes. And thank you, Director Larry, for providing all of that information for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, let's see. We are moving on to superintendent report.
Thank you, Chair Butzner. We actually have one more item. It's the school board meeting calendar that we do need you to take action on tonight.
It is there, and I apologize. So yes, we had our school board calendar update, which includes now our work sessions from January through June, and then a change to our June meeting dates due to the AOS graduation. And we do have all the graduations on the calendar as well. And I'm looking here, but I don't see a copy of the actual calendar in our board book. Did I miss that or no?
I apologize. I do not see it in there
Okay.
either. I think that you discussed them at our work session and
We did.
identified which.
Yeah, we did have it at the work session. I believe we all saw a copy of that calendar changes. Does anyone have questions that we can answer in advance of? Are we okay with those work sessions? I think the work sessions are pretty much in the middle of each of the board meetings throughout each of those months. So any questions there? Okay, so we will entertain a motion on that as well.
I move to approve the school board meeting calendar.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve the school board meeting calendar. Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Director Roach.
Aye.
Director Ward.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that motion passes. And thank you for pointing that out. My screen wasn't all there, so I didn't quite catch that one. All right, now we are moving on to superintendent report.
Thank you so much, Chair Butzner. I am going to start by saying a few words so that Director Allen can prepare. He has a couple slides that I've asked him to share with you tonight. He's super stoked. But I do want to point out a few things that are exciting. Some are in your message and some are not yet. So first, learning visits have been really fun for me to be able to do. I've been able to drop in different ways. A couple that I highlighted in your board packet. The first was the West Albany High School leadership class. They were fantastic. They presented their proposal for contact-free giving during the holiday season, and they had really thought it from all different angles. And at the end of the day, they created this great way of donating by they hold out a QR code at the end of a pole, and they're standing super far away from drivers in drive-throughs, and they're only doing it in pairs, and they're standing over 6 feet apart, and they're completely wearing all of the PPE. I'm just really proud of them because it certainly was not the now they see it as a much more simple process of doing a food drive at your school, where the food arrives and you don't need to go very many places, to this really proactive, very thoughtful strategy that will behoove them in the future for working like a team like this and thinking out different solutions to the issue. So I was really proud of them. I also got to join the Calapooya students and teachers during their office hours, and that's fantastic. Teachers, there's a lead teacher who welcomes kids as they come on board, and then the students ask to go into different rooms based upon their needs. One room was just for students to give each other coaching around their writing assignment. Another room had the language arts teacher walking kids through where they were kind of stuck on their papers. It was really a great way for students to not only get the extra help that they needed in their work, but it created a real social time for kids as well, a much less structured time. And I'm really pleased with how Calapooya has rolled that out. That the staff has done a really nice job with that. I'd like to announce that we have selected our new instructional technology director. We are hiring Rob Singleton. He comes to us from Philomath, and prior to that, he was in Corvallis. Rob was an extremely strong candidate. We were very pleased to have the opportunity to interview him, and he will start with us right after the first of the year. So that's really thrilling. We have, just to remind you, we have been contracting our IT director services from the ESD for many years. And just with this year, when we found ourselves moving into a one-to-one digital world, which we had been far from prior to this year, we realized we really need to bring that position in-house. So I thank the ESD for their partnership. Richard Thomas, who works with the ESD, has been really great with us, and we're really happy to have their partnership in the transition. I also just wanted to spotlight a couple other pieces. If you didn't see the CNN 10 daily news program, Justin Adams in the foundational skills class at South Albany High School got a shout out on that news program, which is pretty fun for them, pretty exciting to see themselves called out on CNN. We also wanted to acknowledge that the NAACP has partnered with Albany Public Schools Foundation, and through a generous donation from the NAACP and a matching grant from APSF, they have established a scholarship that will benefit 5 high school seniors. Each will receive $1,000 in scholarships. So that is a really fantastic partnership to see. And then lastly, we have been administering a distance learning survey to see how we are doing with our students, our families, how are our teachers feeling about the support from those of us who are in administration, how do the administrators feel about their support from central office, how are parents feeling. And so I thought I'd share a few of the highlights with you very briefly. Between November 16th and December 11th, we had 112 parents and 234 secondary students respond to the survey. And here were some of their high points. Students said that 72% of them have at least one adult in their school that they can talk to. 78% say their teacher makes them feel like they belong. 76% feel challenged by their work. 87% said they can easily turn in assignments. And 89% know what they need to do to be successful, which is what we want every day. Parents gave us feedback as well. Over 70% said that the amount of communication from their child's teacher is just right. 72% felt that they have received consistent messaging about the district's plans this year. And 73% say their children are easily able to participate in their classes online. We will continue to monitor the feedback that we find from that survey and give you guys updates. You will be seeing charts in January at the January 11th meeting, because when I give you the update on my goals, some of those goals are being measured by the outcomes on this survey. So with that, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those, or we can hand it over to Director Allen to give a financial update.
Are we getting information along with like which I think the numbers are great, the 70 and 80%. Are we getting information along with some of those ones that are in that 20% or 30% as to what the needs are, what they're not getting? Like, are they providing some input that would help?
Yeah, there are some open-ended questions that allow us to do that. And some of them are very easily addressed, and some of them are not consistent with each other, right? So what we're looking for is trends in the information that we hear. One of the pieces has been just sincerely, children are feeling it's hard to be on the computer all day, and they're having a hard time themselves. And so part of what is difficult is that challenge is one that we continue to try to address through different mental health supports for students, but nothing is going to match the person to person. Yeah.
I was just hopeful that there were maybe some little nuggets of things that we would learn to where we might be able to continue to increase those numbers as we're going through this process, to, see them continuing to grow with things that we can do. There are going to be things, obviously, that just the nature of what we're doing is not going to be ideal. And those are always going to be there, but I'm glad to know we're getting some good input that we can use. So
yeah, and I think one of the things we're trying to do is turn the data around to folks so that everybody within the system is hearing the feedback, because part of what is also telling for us as a system, when we see that the majority of people know what the district's plans are, one of the questions is then who doesn't know, and where are we missing them, and is there an overlap between those who aren't getting the communication that they feel they need from their teacher, and they're also not getting the communication they need from the district, and where are our breakdowns in kind of moving up and down? So we're evaluating that as well and looking for those commonalities, but then also hoping that principals will be able to see because they get their own data broken down by their own school, and they can see that compared to what the district looks like, which should help them kind of calibrate as well what areas they might want to work on with their teams.
Great. Were there any additional board questions or comments on the update? No? Director Allen, it's all you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have a brief 45-minute updates with regards to funding at the state level. The governor released her budget a couple of weeks ago. That's the first salvo of the financial battle that then goes into the legislative session. And so that's the focus here, is just to show you where we stand as compared to where we were at the last budget committee meeting that occurred in November. So yes, it's only 2 slides. So what you see before you is the current biennium, the 1921 biennium. The state school fund is $9 billion, okay? The governor's recommended budget is for a $9.1 billion state school fund. That's actually a slight improvement Department of Administrative Services, for some reason, calculated the what is called the current service level budget for the state school fund to be $9 billion going into the next biennium. We don't believe that was an accurate assessment. So from that perspective, that going to 9.1 was an improvement. The 9.1 includes, however, pulling $2 million from the State Education Stability Fund. That is a fund that's set up to help education. 400 million was pulled out of the Education Stability Fund when the legislature had their budget rebalancing special session a couple of months ago. With those two withdrawals, that will take the state Education Stability Fund down to $227 million before the deposits for the next biennium. So it's good that it's there. It's good that it's available, but that's $600 million that's been drawn down in a relatively short period of time. I shouldn't say drawn down. This is a recommended budget on the part of the governor. If the governor's budget was enacted, that's how it would be funded. The estimate that was used for the Budget Committee financial forecast that you participated in November was 9.2. So the governor is still a little bit below the 9.2 that was used for that forecast. When I say the next bullet is amount needed for current service level, this is what the statewide administrative group, COSA, and the statewide business manager group, OSBA, that's what they're saying their rough estimate of what a real current service level would be about 9.3 billion. Current service level means how much do we need in the next biennium in order to maintain the existing programs that we are funding with the general fund in this biennium. So they're estimating that it's really closer to 9.3, and they have made it legislative priority. You call lobbying, there we go, lobbying priority to get to 9.5 billion. So that's the state school fund. I guess I'll ask if there are any questions with regards to the state school fund before I go to my second slide. I don't know if I'm supposed to call on you, Justin.
I apologize. I couldn't get to my
I'm muted. I'm sorry.
quick enough. So Director Roach, go ahead.
Sorry. When do Ways and Means come out with their recommended budget?
That's a good question. That's not usually until what, Marchish? Okay. They're not on a particular timeline, but that's usually Marchish. Okay. For those of us that have been doing this for a long time, the state school fund is often one of the last things that is decided in the session. The last several sessions, they have certainly talked about trying to do it earlier in the session. They've had mixed success with that. But yes, the governor's the first salvo. The second real salvo is the Ways and Means, the joint Ways and Means committee budget. And you can't hold me to this, but I believe that's probably to be expected late February, early March. Okay. I don't know. I can't see all the faces, Chair.
Yes, and I was just as a reminder, because when we're presenting information, we can't see everyone. So please make sure you use Board Book to do the hand raising feature, and I'll make sure to kind of keep an eye on that as well.
All right. Well, I'll move on to the second slide, and then people can ask questions for anything that they want. There are two other major K-12 funding pots of money. One of them is the Student Success Act. So pre-COVID, and this is what's paid for with the corporate activity tax. And pre-COVID, the assumption for the 2021 school year was statewide $472 million, or $7.6 million for Greater Albany. Post-COVID, that number was reduced to $150 million statewide and roughly $2.5 million for Greater Albany. In the governor's recommended budget, she's recommending and this is just 1 year, just 2021, $389.4 million, which would be $6.2 million for gaps. Still not getting to pre-COVID levels, but certainly a significant improvement over the current year, allowing the superintendent and the board to explore options and goals for what to do with those funds. Measure 98, also known as the High School Success Fund. That one didn't get hit as bad with the rebalancing. Now we're looking at a biennium. For the 1921 biennium, that was funded at $303 million. For GAPS, that was roughly $4.65 million, again, for the 2-year period. The governor's recommended budget is $314.5 million, a slight increase. And if there's no other changes in the way in which the formula is done, just doing it by a percentage, that would be about $4.83 million for GAPS for that 2-year period. So that was it. Just a quick update of what we know in the 3 major funding pots after the governor released her budget.
So are there any additional questions or comments from board members? Director Ward?
Yeah, I think our other budget committee members feel badly that they only get a few meetings in the spring. And I'm sure they're all watching this, but in case they're not, are you making this available to them, Russ, or could you please?
We were going to send these slides out to them tomorrow.
Perfect, thank you.
And Director Roach, did I miss you last time, or did you have your hand raised again this time? I apologize.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. When I have the full screen, I didn't have the board book up. I apologize for that.
No, that's perfect. Okay. Okay. So I don't see any additional questions or comments. So thank you, Director Allen, for the update.
You're welcome.
All right. Next on our agenda was the reopening plan, but I think, did you cover most everything for that you had wanted to, or did you have some more?
No, that was covered during the calendar conversation. Thank you.
Perfect. So I will move us into the board liaison reports, and there is, let me pull it up here. And I will try to get this sized enough that we can all see this. We have, remember, a list of board roles where board members are volunteering to participate with different organizations and efforts within the community. And you'll see here that there are many listed. Oftentimes there's either a single board member, there's a single staff member, or there's staff and board. And those that we are sort of missing board representation on are currently highlighted in yellow. And our goal is to try to figure out if there are folks that are willing to fill those vacancies at this time. Right now, I can go through and as a reminder that I am on the bargaining committee, and then Director Aganaga is on the bond oversight committee. Some of these were newly assigned assignments. We have the budget committee for ESD, which I am part of. The CTE advisory group is Director Thompson, and Director Ward has the Albany Democrat Herald, Albany Latino Parent Advisory Council. I am listed. Oh, I apologize.
Sorry, I know I should have raised my hand and everything, but just while we're there, just a point is that you should probably be the contact for Albany Democrat Herald now that you're chair.
Ah, okay. So yeah, we will maybe have Chris make that update for us.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wasn't sure what that was. Yes, exactly. And then we have, let's see, Albany Police Department is myself, and then Albany Public Schools Foundation is Director Ward, Benton County Taxing District is Director Ward, Boys and Girls Club is myself, we have Kiwanis is Director Aganaga, Legislative is Director Ward, Lynn Benton Community College, oh, sorry, I have the library, City Library is Director Thompson, Lynn Benton Community College is Director Ward, Lynn County Sheriff is Director Ward. And if any of these are also based on the role of the chair, let me know, because your name's on a lot of these. NAACP is Director Ward, and Parent Club, is it preschool? Why can I quite read this? Hold on.
Residents.
Yeah, is Director Ward. Parks and Rec is myself, and preschool coordination is Director Thompson. And I am trying to read some of these and I cannot do that. Radio television, is that what that one is?
Yeah, that's what it is. And that should probably be you as well, Kim.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably a chair assignment as well.
Mm-hmm.
Samaritan Albany General Hospital, we have Director Ward, and then Sodexo we had as myself. So there's a long list there. Don't we love that Director Roach's name is nowhere to be found? Guess what? All the yellow, no, I'm just kidding.
I figured
We can definitely take a look at this, and if there is passion around some of the ones that are assigned already for you, Director Roach, or any of the other board directors that we would want to shuffle around, we are able to do that, but the vacancies are the ones we're most concerned with filling. And we have the Central Albany Revitalization, is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then Chamber of Commerce and City Council, City Hall, and then we have Rotary. So yes, Director Roach, I see your hand, so go ahead.
Thank you. I'm learning the board book as I go.
That's okay.
Well, first off, I'm happy to fill any of those vacancies. Unless there's someone who has interest in filling one of those, they all seem really interesting. The second thing is that I know that bargaining is a big job, and if you would like someone to take on the classified bargaining team, I'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. The bargaining is one that, dependent on how things go with elections, will also potentially change where we're going with that. So we had just kind of left one of us on there for if anything comes up in between now and the next bargaining sessions, but I'm assuming most of those are going to hit after we have our election process. So I think at this point, we probably are safe to just leave that, but it's good to know that that's an area of interest for you as well. We'll take note of that. And even if we do it as a shared responsibility, I have done that with a previous board director, and that worked out really well too, that we were able to kind of alternate. And Director Larry, go ahead.
Just a reminder, Chair Butzner, that we will be engaging with both of our associations this year. So we'll have, classified and certified to cover. So, Director Roach's offer to cover the classified side, I think could be very helpful.
And when you say this year, when will those usually happen?
Well, I would prefer if they started in February.
Okay. So before election time, they should be hitting us. Okay, perfect.
I surely hope so, yeah. Sometimes those things get stalled out a little bit by the uncertainty of the budget in a legislative year, but going into the first year of the biennium, but I would hope so.
So why don't we go ahead and do that update, and we're okay to split that out. We'll do the bargaining as two separate ones, and we'll list Director Roach for classified, and I will take the other, and we'll go from there. Okay. Does anybody have an interest in, some of these might be significant. I don't know, those of you that are currently attending, Superintendent Goff or people from the director's office, are there things that time-wise or importance of some of those, like I know we've got Chamber, City Council and City Hall, Rotary, those are all pretty big significant ones, I think, sometimes. So
Yeah, I'd focus on, so the chamber, I think it would be really great to have a board member that is also participating in the chamber alongside me. And so I think that would be helpful and also informative for the board and kind of building a bridge with our business community. I think city council is one that's a little bit difficult for us because oftentimes we will have meetings that conflict with the city council meetings. And so, but that doesn't mean you're needing to go to all the meetings. It just means you need to be the person keeping up with those affairs and being the liaison with city council. I do think that's an important role for us to have on our board right now. It's just such a time of coordination. I feel like half my job is just coordinating across different entities. So I think that would be really smart.
okay. So is there any interest by other board directors for any of those vacancies? He's jumping. I'm not going to assign our newest board member to all of them. Are we sure there's no one else? How about Director Roach, are you good with taking the chamber? I think the city council and Rotary are the three of the larger ones of those that are vacant currently. Okay, Director Aganaga, go ahead. Oh, Mike, we can't hear you.
Oh, I haven't done that forever.
I know. It always happens at least once in our meetings, so you
I was
know.
getting so good at a streak. I can back up the superintendent with the chamber. I still go to quite a bit of the events and talk to some of the board members and the staff. I don't mind helping with the chamber. I'm hosting greeters this Thursday if you're interested.
Do you attend, Director Aganaga, do you attend for work purposes too?
Yeah.
So why don't we have, just to kind of be able to keep that separate, let you do the work piece of that. Not that you can't also be a representative of the school board there too. Why don't we go ahead and add Director Roach to that one if he's
Yeah, no worries.
willing. So we cover, and then you don't have to do both. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. And then Director Allen, you're listed also under the Central Albany, is it revitalization? Is it area? I'm having a hard time reading it. So
CARA, the Central Albany Revitalization Agency or something.
okay.
I'm on the board or the committee. I don't necessarily represent Greater Albany on the committee. It's not a spot reserved for Greater Albany. I was appointed, but that's why my name is there. As I have served on that board or commission for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now.
Okay, and what's the time commitment? Like how often do they meet?
They meet, they're scheduled to meet once a month. They don't always have a meeting.
Okay. Okay, I will take that one on. And how about if we assign Director Roach to the 3 vacancies? And were there any board members that were wanting to shuffle any of their other assignments around while we're in here looking at this? Anything that, aside from the ones that Director Ward mentioned, probably should be the board chair piece? Is there anything else? No? Okay, so what we will do is get an update of this out and maybe have it ready at the next board meeting so we have a final version to share. And if it's done prior to that, we can also send it out via email and just have it documented so we can start ensuring we're participating there. And then that gives us the opportunity to remember when we talk about our board work which is one of our next things is the board reports. Any of those areas that you attend or represent the board for, our board member report time is there for you to provide us any updates from those particular meetings that we might need to have. Okay. Perfect, thank you. So that brings us to our board member reports. And I'm gonna just open up the floor to see if anyone has any reports for today. Director Ward.
I just want to give a shout out to West Albany. I was just for, again, some more creative thinking outside of the box. I was able to attend their National Honor Society induction ceremony, which is normally held in person. And by golly, they pulled it off on Zoom, and they had, oh geez, there were several, forget the exact number, but many West Albany students that were being inducted. They were all on, their family members were, we weren't showing on the screen, but they were able to attend, and the current leadership for National Honor Society was there, and each inductee got to speak and share their quote and be recognized. And it was just a really great evening for those kids. I'm so glad that Ms. Howell, who oversees the chapter at West Albany, and Principal Orsborn were kind of pushed through it and found a way to do it. Really nice evening for them.
Does that mean you had a daughter that was inducted into the National Honor Society?
It does, actually. So I'm very proud of her.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I'll just say, one of the cool things about doing it this way is that my parents, who live in Maryland, who normally wouldn't be able to be here, were able to get on and attend. And that was pretty cool. So.
That's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other board reports? Director Aganaga.
I got to share my office with a 6-year-old kindergartner the other day, and just a shout out to Miss Brindle and Mrs. Peck at Oak Elementary. That is so cool. Like, it's the coolest way to learn kindergarten when you're not in the classroom. Oh my goodness, they were amazing. I could hear them all day, just instructing and having fun and keeping their students motivated. So very good, Miss Brindle, Miss Peck. You killed it. Good work.
That's awesome. All right. Anything else? Nothing. Okay, we are on to our student board reports, and I'm going to take a minute to apologize. I totally did not include you in our voting for our motions, and I am still getting used to having the extra people to call on, so I apologize. It does not affect the outcome of our vote. However, we do want to hear your input, so I apologize for that, and I will do better going forward, I promise. Okay. So LJ,
yeah.
every time I have a, you know what, AJ, he went to West, and I have him in my head every time I say your name, so I apologize.
All good. Yeah, so talking to some students, I think we're all just a little ready for winter break. We've been working real hard, so that is just what I've been hearing from students there. Everything's going smoothly. We, as you heard, we did have our food drive at West Albany this week. We ended up raising over $1,000 through the GoFundMe and the Dutch Bros drive-thru, so that is awesome. We also collected a lot of food, not as much as we were hoping, but a lot more than we thought, considering the whole pandemic. So that's really good. We have one more drive-through happening, I believe it's tomorrow. So if you want to donate, drive through West Albany tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. I believe it is. If you haven't heard, we're doing a virtual talent show, and it's going live this Friday. I'm in it twice this year, so we're really excited for that. Big shout out to Mr. Bose and Mr. Welsh and Mr. Ide for all the hard work on that. We're really happy that we didn't just cancel it this year. A lot of students are super excited to be able to have that something that they've been looking for every year. So that's all I got.
And is that being recorded?
Yeah, so each act is recording and sending them in, and then Mr. Bose, our computer teacher, is editing it all together, and it'll air live Friday morning.
I was gonna say, they almost always do a live airing, so that's great. And what are you doing?
In one, I'm in a band and I play the guitar in one, and then me and my friend are playing the drums, a little drum duet in the other. So we're really excited for that one.
Nice. Great. Esperanza, you're up.
Well, hello. I wish I could say as much as good things that LJ is portraying. South does have a lot of amazing things going on right now with our Spirit Week and everyone being able to dress up and just having a reason to look forward to every morning, which I thought was very interesting and a lot of fun to do. But I just have a couple of things that, not like complaints, but concerns from the students. One of them wasn't a complaint, it was more of a suggestion, was having the assignment tab mandatory in Canvas. So I don't know if you guys are very familiar with Canvas, but there is a tab that teachers can put there, and it shows all your past work, all your late work, and all your coming work. It shows if it's graded or not, and if you've done it, and not all teachers have it, like put in their modules and everything like that. So some students are asking for it to be mandatory. I don't know if that's something you guys could do. And another thing was late work. If it's something that teachers are, it's more of like a confusion within the students. If teachers are allowed to grade late work as late work, like if they're allowed to take points off or not, because there are a lot of the only one I know about is AP English teachers doing that, is they're still taking off points for late work, which is something that's very concerning for some students, considering the work is due a day after it's assigned or 2 days after it's assigned, and it's like chapters. So that's just a little bit of a concern considering everything that's going on right now. Just not knowing if teachers are allowed to do that or not. Another thing was I kept getting complaints because I do these polls on my social media and ask for students like anonymously to send in things, just because sometimes it's easier to do it like that. And was sports, and like considerable amount of it was sports and why it's canceled. And I know you guys sent out email this morning of it being postponed again. So if just someone can explain, because I do have like about 5 students on the live stream right now watching, hoping to get a greater understanding as to why sports can't happen right now and why it's not happening. I don't know if that's like still a thing, just because I'm not in sports. I don't do any of that. I'm not following any of it.
I think it is something that we're seeing in other states. People are seeing that other states are continuing with some of those things as well. And so I think that question does come up quite often in the community. So yeah.
I appreciate you asking. I think that's fantastic, Esperanza. I love the idea of polls. We should be using polls because they're quick and dirty, right? You just find out, no one needs to spend a lot of time on it. The reason that sports have been canceled is that now for our school district is that our sports programs are now tied to the exact same green, yellow, orange, red indicators that the schools are. So before there was not that clear cut tie, but now they are all, and it's the exact same coding that everybody across the state is held to. So every county, no matter what you're in, education, or you're a doctor, or you own a restaurant, you all operate under that green, yellow, orange, red category now. And so the risks at that red category, which is where we are, that extreme risk category. I'm sorry, my cats they're actually fighting behind me. Is such it creates a lot of barriers to being able to be inside. You can't be inside, for example, so you can't have indoor practices. There are all of these limitations. So it's all about safety for kids. The intent is for sports to be able to get back up, and we will do that as soon as OSA allows it, which again means that we need to move out of this extreme risk category, and we need to have lower COVID counts. We need to be able to control the spread of COVID within the community. So the only thing that gets sports back is our ability to do that. And there are certainly limitations that you can see. I actually went over this during our parent forums last week to share with them what those changes are. But even if you're outside and you're doing some sort of outside training, there are limitations on how many kids can even be assembled for that outside training. So it's really strict. And the reason is because we're spreading COVID at such alarming rates. We're 5 times the acceptable level to even get little kids back in school. So that unfortunately is the answer. But that's all. What's good about that is we know then what gets kids back in sports, and it's moving out of those categories and getting some control. So there are some pieces that OSAA moved where they moved the athletic competitions later for the entire state, right? So they moved all the seasons later. And they moved the championship for things such as choir and music. Everything has kind of been moved down the road, but it's all still calendared. And their hope is that kids can get back and do their favorite sports at some point during this year. I mean, that is the real hope for all of us. And I think that with the vaccine coming out, that is helpful for the community spread as long as we see people take it. So it's not surprising that students are frustrated. I think we are all frustrated. I sat in a meeting with all of the athletic directors across the state and all of the superintendents across the state, and everybody knew this was going to be really difficult. And it's really hard on kids for whom that connection is part of what's kind of keeping them going during the pandemic. So it's a really hard thing. But I'm meeting with each of the booster clubs this week to walk them through and let them ask me any questions. It's really, really difficult.
I'm not sure if students know that there's a state organization for athletics that determines kind of the rules of how it works for safety and other things. And they've said, hey, this is what's allowed and this is what's not, depending on if you're yellow, orange, red. So I don't know as a student if I realized that when I was in high school, but there's a state organization that's separate from the district that said, this is what you can and can't do. And so the simple answer is, well, that's why. Right.
And I guess the other thing that I would just make sure that you understand and are able to communicate to your other students is that all the seasons shifted for the entire state, because if you look at the state map, we're almost all in the red zone. Almost all of our counties are in the red zone. And so OSA, the organizing organization, which is the Oregon Sports and Activities Association, OSAA, they said, okay, well, if everybody's in this boat, we need to shift down the road so that the timing of the seasons makes more sense and kids can participate.
They're also going to run into issues with some of those regions or counties are going to cross over which groups compete against one another as well. So those counties it's not all one county that has your league, and so your league might cross over 3 different counties, and not all 3 of those counties might actually be in that same zone at the same time. And so you might have one county that's able to have sports, but then the other 2 are not. And so the majority of who you would compete against is still not able to participate either. So it'll change depending on what that looks like for the entire state and county by county. But, that doesn't mean they couldn't practice and, have some of those other things. They just may not have other teams to compete against other than in their own counties.
Which is another shift that they made. Thank you for pointing that out, Chair Butzner. The other shift that they announced is, and they had talked to coaches about this already, but to ignore our leagues, ignore our conferences, and simply schedule your competitions with those schools that are located near you. So you're going to see us competing against totally different teams than we've been competing against before when we get to compete.
Right. That's great.
I do just want to ask a question for clarification. late work. Are they like suggestion to not grade it, or is it like a thing? I don't know. Not grade. Is it like a suggestion not to grade late work as late work, or if it's something that they're not supposed to do?
So Esperanza, I would need to check back with the administrators and find that out, but we'll get clear communication out to students and staff on that so that we're consistent.
Thank you. And then that's all I have.
And I know that has been a topic of discussion previously, and I think is not always consistently being kind of administered the same. And so I do know that that's a question the students are asking too. So thanks for bringing that up if they're still having those same challenges. And there might be some differentiation with AP classes. I know they've had that discussion before as well, with the AP classes having a schedule that they have to meet specifically for also being able to get your credits and that sort of thing. There's certain things that have to be done, and sometimes the grading for that takes a little longer. So I know with some of the AP classes, there were some exceptions, I think, in there initially, but it'll be good to get an update on those. Yeah. All right. So real quick, I'm thinking now is probably the best time for us to go ahead and take a quick break. I know that the next on our agenda is our RISE presentation. So while we have to get them included in the meeting, I thought that would be a good time for the rest of us to take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll get them on board with us. So we are looking at, we'll call it 8:30. So we will come back at 8:40 and have hopefully all of our RISE participants that are presenting for us then. All right, thank you. Oh my goodness, as we're all coming back, there's all kinds of new faces. Okay, I think we have most everyone back. So we are moving on to the agenda for our RISE presentation, and I have Superintendent Goff and Rose, is it Zollner? Yes, taking the lead on this one, it sounds like. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Butzner. I had the privilege of sitting before a group of Rose Zollner's students, her RISE students. Gosh, it was probably 6 weeks ago now. It seems like it was, yeah, a long time, I guess, where they shared with me their ideas for a diversity mural within the district. And the presentation was so well thought out and the details so intricate that I was not only moved by the presentation, but thought it certainly is something that our board should hear, that we should potentially expand the initial idea and have an opportunity for Rose's students to be, Ms. Zollner's students to be able to speak with us. So tonight we have a different group of students than the first group who spoke with me, and I'll let Ms. Zollner introduce them. But I'm so glad to have you all here, and I just want you to know ahead of the presentation that you are going to do awesome, and I'm really excited about what you're here to share tonight.
Thank you so much for saying that, Mrs. Goff. I know that some of them are a little bit nervous tonight, but I told them that, you know, I'm naturally awkward and I'm going first, so they're going to kill it after I get done introducing them. So I just told them that I hope I don't let them down with the introduction. But I'm really excited to introduce our RISE students. Every year they have an opportunity to select a few community projects. We focus on different social issues, and then the students actually design a project based on something that they're passionate about. This year, something that they've been really focused on is just kind of expanding representation within our district. And we've been kind of talking about some current events and issues that really interest them or surrounding this. So they have designed this project. They've been putting together a timeline. They've put a lot of thought into this, and so I'm really proud of them. So I would love to hand it over to them. We have Hannah here tonight, Courtney, Victoria, Jackie, and Alexa, who are prepared to talk to you a little bit about their vision for a mural in our school district. So I will let Hannah start us off.
Thank you so much for having us. We're presenting to you our proposal for a mural that will promote inclusion and increase the sense of welcome in our community and the school district. The quote, "No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you are beautiful" by Michelle Obama is what our mural's design will be inspired by. Next. We plan to design 3 murals that represent our selected quote. They will be focused on embracing and celebrating the diversity in our community. We will send out a virtual flyer to the students in the school district asking for submissions for our design idea. Our goal is to create 3 murals, and one will be inside the boardroom in the school district office. The designs will be chosen based on a survey that will be sent out to everyone in our school district so they can vote on the submissions. The reason we've decided to create the indoor murals in vinyl is because they are very durable, they can be made without meeting in person, and they require fewer materials to create than a painted mural would. A vinyl mural is a design that is digitally printed onto a large sheet of vinyl with an adhesive backing and then attached to the chosen surface. The outdoor murals will be painted on the walls of school buildings and will need to be painted on specifically because vinyl is not meant to go outside. Next.
Why is this project so important? Well, it is important because people in our community are being discriminated against for things that they can't control. We feel that our mural would encourage a sense of community and inclusion. We want everyone in our community to belong and feel like they belong as well. Why art in this project? Well, art is a language with no barriers, which means everyone can understand what message we are trying to send through the mural, and everyone who sees the design will be reminded that every person here, no matter who they are or what they believe in, are welcome in our community. Next.
This project will benefit minority groups who feel left out. It will celebrate their differences and make them feel included and recognized. This will also portray the district in a positive way by demonstrating it's an inclusive place. This picture is actually a mural located in Portland, and every time I go there, I see so many that it makes me feel empowered to stand up to discrimination and embrace everyone's differences. Next.
We realized that vandalism could be a risk. We think the risk outweighed the benefits of this project. We would want to educate the community to ensure that they know the importance of our project. We realize that some parts of this project will need to take place after COVID. We would want to work on the indoor mural first and look for the future for the outdoor mural. With education and a well-informed plan, we believe that our mural will be protected and we could move forward with our project successfully. Next. The approximate budget of our mural would be $44,000. Power Graphics could create the mural. Cost per square foot would be $6 for the indoor mural, which would be by vinyl, and the national average of an outdoor mural would be around $13,000 per mural. I'm sorry, next.
So we will advertise through Instagram and social media, and we will email different schools and reach out to a bunch of different art classes. And people can also submit using our Google form, which is the link right there under Google form. And our class is also starting an Instagram account to represent the diverse voices of the youth in our community through Art on the Rise. This month we are rolling out a mental health awareness campaign, but we also plan to use this site to request submissions for the mural as well. We will be creating a video and accepting artwork starting January 15th. Next. Some things we need from you to get our project set is an email list of everyone in the district.
Did we lose Courtney?
I think we lost a connection with, did we only lose Courtney or did we lose others as well?
Oh, there you are. Courtney?
Back?
Was my internet unstable?
That's okay. So you're going to want to start at the beginning of this slide, okay?
Okay. So some things we need from you to get our project set is an email list of everyone in the district in order to send out the flyer, and dimensions inside the boardroom for the vinyl mural, and any available outside locations for the other two murals, which will be painted. What we'll be gathering from the community is design submissions and a survey to fill out to determine the design for the 3 murals. Did everyone hear me okay? No. Okay, good. Next, sorry.
All right. In conclusion, our main goal with this project is to embrace embrace diversity, and make everyone feel welcome. A vivid mural is the way to express ourselves in a form of art. Sometimes seeing it is better than hearing it. It's a window of opportunity to bring people together rather than leaving people out to feel alone. Since some people won't really hear out what we have to say, maybe they can see it with their own eyes. You can follow our movement, like Courtney said, at art_on_the_rise on Instagram. All right, now, are there any questions?
Oh, you don't know this group very well. Of course, we've got questions. But that was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you guys very much. I know the work you guys do and have experienced some of that myself, and it's great work. And even in the midst of the pandemic, I know there's been tons of social media posts about Rise and the things that you guys are doing. And so thank you for all of that. It's been wonderful to continue to see. I'm going to lead off because I can. I'm already talking with a couple of questions. And then we'll kind of run around with some of these other ones here as well. I just wanted to clarify on the 2 locations for the outside murals. Are those school district related locations, or are you looking for city specific locations? Are those district related locations? Yes, I'm kind of seeing hands. I think I saw Hannah's hand up. Did you have a, okay, go ahead.
We were thinking they were going to be district locations, specifically on school buildings.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you for that. And then I will move to real quick here because I've got quite a few folks with questions. So let me get up here. I saw Esperanza had a question, so we'll let you start.
My main concern is how exactly are you going to portray 3 murals with complete diversity? Because it's kind of hard when we don't really know who to speak to or how to reach out to people. And with surveys, you can only reach so far, I believe. So how exactly are you going to make every person's voice heard? Like, my main concern is creating a mural that doesn't exactly represent a certain group of people.
Alexa.
So we were actually thinking about reaching out to the whole district and mostly Albany pretty much, but we were actually truly thinking about reaching out to everyone, not just South Albany, maybe even West Albany, the elementary schools everywhere, instead of just having just one set high school or just one set school. So I think diversity here is definitely on the table, but we could also reach out further if that would be possible.
And so your goal is to go ahead and make sure we're representing all of the areas that need to be represented. Great. Courtney.
I just wanted to add on to that. So I know a lot of schools have a bunch of different kinds of art programs, and a lot of different people do different styles of arts, and there's a bunch of different ethnicities and races and all those kinds of things. And I feel like if we have all of them from different schools and different ages, different kinds of arts, different art classes, that we'd have a lot of range and not just one kind of style.
Great. Okay. Director Ward had a question.
Thank you for that amazing presentation and this great idea. 2 questions. Have you had the opportunity to see the mural at South Shore Elementary? It might, yeah, you have, good. If you haven't, I would urge you to go take a look at it. It's a mural that they added right near their front door as you're approaching the front door. And South Shore is one of our schools that houses our dual language program. And I just love that mural. It beautifies the school, and it just creates that sense of unity that their school community is all about. And I'm sure that these murals will do the same. That's why I'm so excited about them. I might also mention that, the board just recently adopted an equity and education policy, kind of outlined some of the aspects of diversity inclusion that we're concerned about in our district. And you might want to reference that or encourage those that are submitting work to you to be considered to look at that as well. And that might get at Esperanza's concern about artwork that reflects, that really reflects the whole rainbow of diversity that makes up our school community and our community of Albany.
Yeah. Director Roach.
Thank you. First off, I'm just so impressed with all of you. So thank you for your presentation tonight. The work you're putting into this is really impressive. I want to know just a little bit more about the selection process. How you're gonna, if you're doing a survey, how you make sure you don't end up with a Bodie McBoatface mural rather than something that will really, convey what you're trying to get across with this project.
Go ahead, Hannah. I see hands kind of going up, so I'm not, if someone else is putting their hand up, let me know.
Okay, so for the voting process, our plan was to have a survey sent out to every student in the school district. We didn't really talk about how we would get it to the adults in the community because we don't have access to like an email list or anything. At least the students, we certainly don't. So that's where we were asking for help from the board, was maybe if you guys had a list of adults in the school district, then we could email them as well, the form.
Director Roach, did that completely answer your question, or did you also have questions?
That's assuming the adults are going to make better voting decisions than kids, which I'm not totally convinced of. So how will you decide? Let's say you get 100 submissions. How are you going to decide which ones? Will all of them be in the survey so that everyone gets to vote on each one? Or how are you going to make sure that you're really, because you're sticking with your main mission of embracing diversity and making people feel welcome? And I imagine you're probably going to get some submissions that won't exactly align with that.
Alexa, do you want to speak to this?
Actually, we only briefly talked about that, but pretty much what our presenting group, which is this group, briefly touched upon that was pretty much we were planning on getting all the submissions and then narrowing it down to see if they completed the task for it, if the quote that was presented at the first slide would be included, if we actually thought it represented diversity, and if it was pretty much eye-pleasing, I guess you could say. So we didn't touch upon that completely, but that was our basic foundation.
Assistant Superintendent Harlan.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming. It's difficult for a group of kids to come sometimes to a group of adults who have some kind of authority that make decisions for a school district. And I think it's so important that we hear from kids and what your experience is and what you value and what you want out of your school experience and in your community. So I just know it was nerve-wracking, and I thought you just did a great job in hearing really your dreams and wishes and what you want school and your community to be about. I just am so super thankful for you all for coming, and keep doing it and keep encouraging your classmates to do that, to use your voice to shape what you want your community and schools to look like. I think that's how we make the best decisions. So I'm supportive of you all as a group of this project and individually, and super proud.
Superintendent Goff.
Thank you. I want to echo that. I think you all did a fantastic job. So you did exactly as I thought you would, well done. And I appreciate the leadership that you're showing in bringing this forward to the greater community. I think that is so critical and important. And just having this presentation in front of us tonight and in front of anyone who may be viewing the board meeting raises awareness of the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusion to our students who are asking for representation themselves. So thank you so very much for bringing this forward. I do want to let you know that I did invite Executive Director from the Albany Public Schools Foundation, Amy, to watch tonight, and she is watching. So I wanted to make sure that at their next board meeting, Albany Public Schools Foundation would be able to potentially have a conversation about your proposal. I do think that I just want to make sure that the numbers that are written in the presentation are accurate. So the total is $4,400. Is that accurate for what you're estimating the cost? For the 3 total? Okay.
That's as accurate as they could get without actually knowing square footage, but I was so impressed. They were asking me for all the numbers and everything. So yeah, I think they got close. So I hope so.
Thank you. And so so that's a really good number for her to have in her head to see if any dent can be made in that through some partnership. And then finally, I just want to say, I think it is so creative for you guys to think about the vinyl and the fact that the entire design can be done without anybody being in person with each other. It's just so brilliant for you to think that all the way through. And certainly I think we can find opportunities hopefully across the district for these 3 murals. So thank you so much.
I would also venture to guess, depending on the community support and some of the fundraising that could happen, you might have an opportunity to even do more than 3. And so it might be a situation where we get some good support and can look for additional locations for them, which would be great. I also wanted to speak to the vandalism, which I think is a really good point that you guys made in your presentation as well, because that is one of the things you see with some of the murals in your downtown Portland areas and places like that, especially the painted ones on the outdoor locations. And I was just curious if you have researched, or if maybe you could research, whether there's something that can be done to the outside of those, either a coating or a covering of some sort, so that if somebody does attempt to vandalize, it doesn't actually impact the original artwork itself, but is something that could be, like if there's a plexiglass something over it and something can actually be removed or replaced without impacting the artwork. I know there might be an additional cost to something like that, but I'd be interested in seeing if anyone has any solutions out there for those types of things, because I mean, that would just be heartbreaking to have the effort put into an actual painted mural. And we see that a lot. There's a lot of effort that goes into that and a lot of artistic creativeness that goes into those. And I would hate to lose any of that due to any kind of vandalism at some point. So I didn't know if there was an option for us there. Yeah. This is just a very exciting opportunity that I think you guys are presenting, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing where it goes from here for sure. Any other folks that had comments or questions? LJ.
Yeah, I love the idea of having a mural. I was wondering, is it, if it's open to both schools, like are we gonna get a mural at West as well? Because I would love to see that. And also just a suggestion, maybe reach out to the NAACP and maybe like, I can't think of the word right now, groups like that for input on types of stuff like that. But yeah, I love the idea. I think it's a super cool thing that I'm surprised we've never thought of before. So I love it.
So LJ, I just want to say that our group loves to work with other groups in the community. So if you know students from West Albany High School, that would like to work on this, I could find a way to get you my contact information, and maybe you could share that with the appropriate advisor. But we are all for collaborating and including people. So we would love to work with West as well.
Were there other comments or questions? I don't see any others. Great job, you guys. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and present this to us. And I think, like others have said, we know it can be nerve-wracking and it's hard, but you guys did a great job. And we really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. So keep it up. You guys are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much for having our group. I know they were so nervous about this, but they just did a phenomenal job. So we appreciate you giving us this opportunity.
And we will work on, it looks like we had some questions of us as far as things that you would need from us. And so we will continue to discuss those things and figure out the best way for us to assist in this process. I'm not sure what access to an email list looks like for the district, but I'm sure our district staff will work on that piece.
We can help you out on that one.
Yes. And then we can definitely discuss, and I'm sure the district will look at some locations and maybe at your guys' recommendations as well for what you think that looks like. And we'll see if we can't assist with some of the fundraising efforts as well and getting the information out there. So we can definitely be a voice for that, and we'll work on the questions you have for us.
Ms. Zollner, I just want to thank you. This is such a great example of applied project-based learning where kids are learning really deep, important skills about communication, about collaboration, teamwork, about doing the math of the problem and finding out multiple solutions to a single problem. So there are so many aspects that you have covered with your students in this project, let alone the topic of the project being so important. But I do think because the topic of the project was so important, you probably saw greater engagement by all of these students as well. So I just want to say thank you very much for doing a great job for our kids. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Nice work, everyone. And I know I'm probably speaking for everybody, but we're excited to see where this goes. All of us are. So that'll be a fun project for all of us to see you guys be able to implement and put into place. So thank you. Have a good evening. All right. So fun. That was great. So we've got a few folks joining us as well for our next topic, which is Substitute Teacher of the Year. And I believe, Director Larry, were you gonna start this one off?
Yes, I will start this off very simply by letting you know that we're very proud to once again have the Substitute Teacher of the Year work in our school district. Substitute teacher Mary Hummer has been recognized by the Oregon Substitute Teachers Association, and she was nominated by a couple of our teachers from Sunrise Elementary, one of which looks like is in attendance tonight. So I'll start by introducing Sally Sue Sellers from the Oregon Substitute Teacher Association.
Thank you, and to Superintendent Goff and Randy and board members, and especially Chris Green for including the Oregon Substitute Teachers Association in your celebration of Mary Hummer. She's our 2020-2021 Oregon Substitute Teacher of the Year. And it's estimated that in normal times, which this certainly isn't, 10% of the student's year is spent with substitute teachers. And these people are prepared every day to make positive impacts in the lives of our students. And these dedicated teachers contribute their talents, skills, expertise as a vital part of the educational team. And in 2000, we began our annual recognition of an Oregon Substitute Teacher of the Year. And our goal has been to honor outstanding substitutes who exemplify the high standards that we all value. And every year, we invite Oregon schools to nominate deserving individuals, and teachers and principals, counselors, secretaries have all participated. And from this list of qualified nominees, it's our challenge to make a selection. And this year, we're extremely thrilled to honor Mary Hummer as our 21st Oregon Substitute Teacher of the Year. Her students are certainly fortunate to have her in their lives. Thank you.
And Susan Corder from Sunrise Elementary was one of the teachers who nominated Ms. Hummer.
Hi, and good to see you, Mary. I haven't seen you all year. So my name is Susan Corder, and I teach kindergarten at Sunrise. And I'm just so glad we're here to recognize Mary for this great accomplishment. I met her last year at the beginning of the year. She was a sub right away in the building, and I was just really impressed. You know, she'd pop her head in my room and ask really great questions. And then our coaches said, you know, hey, there's this really good sub in the building. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna, you know, try to grab her because there's dates I knew I needed to use throughout the year. And I was really impressed because I asked her, could you do these dates? And her response back to me was, well, why don't we try this one day and we'll see if I'm a good fit. And so that right away just told me that it was more than just come in and, you know, sub all these days. She wanted to see if she was a good fit and if she was going to do a really good job. The kids and her would be a good fit for each other. And so it really meant something to her, the job she was doing. And so that really impressed me. And she was dependable, kind. She always followed lesson plans, which if you're a teacher, you really want that because, you know, you're gone for a day and you want the kids learning to continue. And so she always followed my lesson plans. She communicated with me, with parents, with other staff. And she would often offer to come back, even, you know, the next day to finish up something or plan to do things to be helpful for me for the next day, the prep work, you know, in kindergarten, sometimes there's a lot. And then one just other quick little story that I just really loved was one day she was subbing in the building and she was going to be in my room the next day. And so I said, Mary, do you want to come down and look at my lesson plans for tomorrow and see if you have any questions? And so she came down and looked over the lesson plans, and I was happening to teach a unit that had different cultures where the kids were bringing in different foods. And one of the foods in that story was hummus. And Mary says, do you mind if I bring in some hummus tomorrow for the kids to try? And I just thought, wow, you know, this is a substitute teacher and she's willing to bring in a food for kids to try. So she was the only sub I used last year, and she was very deserving of this reward. And we were just really lucky as a district to have her. So thank you, Mary.
And so we have presented Mary with a certificate honoring her as the Substitute of the Year from GAPS. And I told her I would be sending that to her virtually tonight. So Mary, here you go. There's the award. And, oh, it got there. Perfect. Mary, would you like to say a couple of words? Yeah, it's that.
There we go. There we go. I want to thank Susan for your kind words, and then also thank you to the Sally Sue with the Oregon Substitute organization. That has been awesome. I just wanted to say that I just feel like it was such a privilege and an honor to get this award. When it came, it was a day that I was out in the garage. I opened the envelope, found out that I won, and it was like, oh my God, how did this happen? I was just so excited because, you know, it's like being a kid. You get honored as Student of the Week, and you can't wait to go home and tell everybody about it. But this was something that I'm like, do people recognize that it's still something that's really important to me? And it was something that I just wanted other people to share. I hate to admit it, but I was kind of jealous that teachers got the golden apple, and I'm like, oh, okay, what can I get? And so this was awesome. I wanted to mention a few things about substitute teaching. When I go in, I know that there's a lot of things that are on the kids' plates. There's no control of what's going to be bothering them that day or what's going on in their family life. But I do know is that I can acknowledge them and also make them feel important and want it and need it for the day. So each time when I substitute, I try to make sure that the kids get to have an important role where they can be the expert in whatever they want to be, whatever they volunteer to be. And those individuals that have special needs, they get to be the individual that's standing right next to me, and they may be the one that turns the page, or they're the ones that wear the microphone for a while and they're directing, but every individual in the classroom ends up getting to be noticed and gets the opportunity to be the teacher. At the end of the day, I've heard it more than once where kids are saying, Miss Hummingbird, are you coming back another time? And it just is like, whoa, this has been so awesome. The kids have shared their superpower with me of being a substitute, and I feel so blessed. I've been noticed and I've gotten attention. And so at the end of the day, I realize that they've had the opportunity to experience my substitute teacher superpower. So thank you very much. I can't say thank you enough. It's been awesome to receive this.
Well,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And it's great work that you're doing, and we appreciate it so much, and congratulations. So it's a wonderful opportunity for you for representing Albany as well, which I think is great. And I love the fact that our peers are nominating one another and recognizing each other as well. So
it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Well,
great.
Next year, there's always another substitute of the year. Hopefully you're noticing already all the work that's going into online. So thank you for this honor.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And thanks for all three of you joining us for our meeting, and to Director Larry for coordinating the presentation.
Okay.
Just have to say hi, Justin. Used to work with him at Sunrise.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Had a great meeting so far. This is fun. I like all these. All right. So we had no comments from the public submitted today. As a reminder, comments from the public can come in up until noon on the day of our meetings. So for our next meeting that's coming up, that will be the same as long as we're virtual. That's been the easiest way for us to gather those and have enough time to review them and have them prepared. So, all right, and then we move into our consent agenda. We had just the personnel updates, our minutes from our last meetings, and the monthly financial report. Rather than looking at each one, I will just ask if there were any comments or input from any of the board directors that needed to be looked at or updated. Nothing. Okay. So our consent agenda, I always do this wrong. We don't need to do a motion for it. It just automatically passes. Thank you. I'm like, it's a Monday for sure. So our consent agenda passes, and we will look at our old business. The first thing on this list is our board policies. And we had GBEB and JBCC, both presented the last time, communicable diseases for staff and then one for students. Were there any changes made that we need to know about? Nothing, okay. And no questions or comments additional from board directors? And Director Roach, I know you weren't here for all of those, but I think if you hopefully had an opportunity to look at those, and if you have questions, please ask those. And then we'll look for a motion on this one if there's no additional questions.
I move to approve policies GBEB and JBCC as presented.
So there's a motion on the table to approve policies GBEB and JBCC as presented. Director Ward.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Director Roach.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that one passes unanimously. And I apologize, I'm going in order by who I see on the screen, and the order has shuffled since we've had people in and out. So next on our list is our OSBA election resolution. Oh, nope, I lied. School Health Services Planning Grant. I'm pulling that one up also. Were there any questions or additional comments on the School Services Health Grant? I don't think, oh, we do have. Rachel, thank you. Hello. You must have popped in when I didn't see you. Did you have any updates that were made or things that came out of the last meeting and between the last one and now?
No new updates.
Perfect. Any additional questions or comments from board directors? Okay. We will also entertain a motion for this one then.
No, wait.
Oh, yep. Is that Director Thompson?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a 60,000 renewable for 3 years, under the school nursing model. So we'd hire some people is what it comes down to. So for 3 years, so isn't there some concern that we'd have them for 3 years, and how do we via the grant, it probably ends up being something we want to keep going. So how do we continue it? Or does the people help us get to a model that is sustainable in another way? I mean, after 3 years.
Combination, most likely, to address that. So the part of the grant process from here on out is trying to figure out the sustainability model. But in addition to that, the state's Medicaid services, we also, by having more nursing services, will be able to help with our Medicaid billing. And the state is planning on introducing new sources of funding for Medicaid billing that will likely expand in the next 3 years as well. That would also then supplement that extra 60,000 that we would be getting from the state after that 3-year mark. So it's kind of a combination of both.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay. So we are looking for a motion on this one as well. And if you're looking in board book, I have it up. Director Roach.
I get to make a motion. Okay. I want to make a motion to approve this School Health Services Planning Grant report as presented.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the table to approve the School Health Services Planning Grant report as presented. Director Ward?
Aye.
Director Aganaga?
Aye.
Director Roach?
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson?
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that one passes unanimously. And thank you, Rachel, for all the work on this. Good luck with all the planning and all the work that comes along now. All right, now we are to our OSBA election resolution. We presented that at the last meeting and now are just basically approving its adoption. Were there any additional? I don't think there were any questions last time we presented this, but as if there's anything new. And if not, we will entertain a motion on this as well.
I move to adopt the OSBA resolutions as presented.
Director Ward, did you have a comment or question beforehand?
Nope, I was just moving too, but Michael moved first.
Perfect. There is a motion on the table to adopt the OSBA resolutions as presented. Director Ward.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Director Roach.
I just have a point of question. I don't want to slow things down.
Yes.
Being as how I wasn't part of this when it was new business, is it appropriate for me to vote on these, or should I recuse myself for these ones?
No, you can vote. They were provided to you in the packet in advance of, so yes, you are able to do that. And if you did have questions, you could ask in advance of, but thank you for asking that.
Okay.
Yes.
I vote aye.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that one passes unanimously as well. All right, and then let's see, we are moving on to transportation facility. We had a pretty thorough presentation on the transportation facility. So again, are there any additional questions? Did we have Russ or anyone joining us at this point? I just want to make sure.
No, we did. We had Mr. Buttram here last time to answer questions. We did not ask him to come this evening. I will certainly do whatever I can to answer any questions you might have.
Just want to make sure. Thank you. Any other director questions or comments? Seeing none, we will entertain a motion here as well.
I'll make a motion to authorize proceeding with the summer 2022 completion timeline for the replacement transportation facility.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table to authorize proceeding with the summer 2022 completion timeline for the replacement transportation facility. Director Ward.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Director Roach.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So again, passes unanimously. Excellent. Now we are on to, I don't believe we had any reports tonight. And so we are on to bond business with our monthly bond report. Did we have anyone joining us?
Dave, we should have David McKay joining us this evening. I don't believe we have Doug Pigman joining us, but we do have David McKay. I hope he's on there. I've been communicating with him throughout the evening.
Oh, yep, he's popping in here.
There we go. Good. He has joined.
Hi, David.
So I'm Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm afraid this next section won't go quite as quickly as the last, but we do have David McKay here in order to present to you the information in the end of month report, or summarize the end of month report that you have. So I just also wanted to clarify that you understand that the information that you were provided in the packet was through October, the end of October. At your first meeting in January, you will get a end of month report that will take you through the end of November. And at your second board meeting in January, you will get the report that takes you through the end of December. And then as long as you have 2 board meetings a month, we'll be back on the normal cycle of receiving the prior month at your second board meeting. David, go ahead and give them a summary and stand for questions.
We're not hearing you, David.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
My family tells me that at times my lips are moving, but they're not hearing anything. But they don't have the excuse that there was a mute button. Members of the board, thank you for tonight. We are presenting October to you. I noticed the meeting is going long. Do you want me to do an abbreviated and open to questions, or how much information? Perfect. Okay. The big highlight was the Red Hawk statue. You know, it's on the cover. We put it in the proposal, or excuse me, in the end of month report. There's some great pictures of it on page 70 and 71 too. And so that was just so exciting. You know, with all that we went through with South Albany, the fire, and almost turning it over to the school, and then doing that reconstruction, the Red Hawk just was like, we're done. And so it was exciting. And I don't know if anybody's been able to go and see it, but it's pretty spectacular. Look forward to the ribbon cutting. Hopefully we'll be able to have one. virtual ribbon cuttings just don't work, but at some point we will have one, and we'll be able to celebrate the success and what a great addition to the facilities we had. I would say that we are working on Meadow Ridge and Oak Grove, on Memorial and NAMS. We just kind of, and South, we're very, very close to having those completely closed out. Again, one of the things we pride ourselves in, until every single piece of paper, until we receive everything, we don't leave the project. And so we're just working, and we're just diligently pursuing every last item that is required by the contract with them. And we are hoping, fingers crossed, by the end of December, we will be done with all those and be able to tell you we're done. It's amazing how long it takes to get the paperwork done at the end of a project. So the South of Albany fire is very close to being done. Again, just some minor closeout pieces that we're working on. I would like to, take a moment. If you go to page 73, Kim, it would be West Albany High School. Construction is messy. You've heard me say that. There's always challenges that we're working through. There were 3 challenges that we highlighted. It's on the bottom of page 74. We've talked about this, and that was the improper placement on the mechanical units, the air handlers for the coils. The cooling coils were in front of the heating coils. We're working through that. I'm happy to say that work has been completed. Utility power.
David, I'm not sure that my numbers are matching up with your numbers, so I just wanted to clarify.
It's 7 in the board packet. It's board packet number 7, page 73, and board packet page 74.
Aha. And I'm not sure where I find those numbers on this.
That's a good question.
Board packet, because I'm only seeing HMK page numbers.
So mine would be page 21 and 22.
Let me go there.
So I will give you those pages, Kim.
That works. Let me find, so we said 21 and 22? Yes. Perfect.
So 22 is where I am right now. The second challenge we faced in October was the utility power cutover. That is, I don't know if you all understand just the complexity of that. G4, as I describe it, and I'm probably not describing it well, is a major north-south internet hub for all internet traffic traveling in the Willamette Valley. And so you can imagine the power for West Albany High School also impacts that. And just working through those details was significant. It actually took us about 6 weeks to try to work through all of that so that we could take the power down and not have any loss of service for G4 or for the district.
David, just to elaborate,
yes,
G4 refers to an old numbering scheme at West Albany High School. It's over near the greenhouse, I guess is the best way to put it, and the community living center area. And what he's referring to is LS Networks, which is a major provider for internet throughout the state. They lease space in the old room G4. And so that was the concern that he was expressing. It's not just bringing the district's network down, but coordinating with them, because if that area goes down without power, I don't know how long they have backups, but it would at some point interrupt their service as well.
Thank you, Russ. And then we had a concrete uniform color issue that we worked with the contractor for literally 8 weeks until we finally got them to recognize that it was their problem and they need to pay to paint the concrete. So this is those tilt wall panels. So a couple of the challenges just wanted to highlight. And then Kim, page 24 of 85, You remember the discussion about the courtyard and the covered canopy in the back? You're really seeing a picture there of that courtyard coming to shape and the canopy, and it's really going to be a very, very nice space. And I'll continue to highlight that in the photos so you can picture that coming together. And then on page 25, that parking lot and connector to Liberty is in. And, you know, when we start seeing pavement and curbs and landscaping and striping coming in, it's just a great feel because it's really coming together. 28 of 85 is a picture looking from the back of the auditorium to the front into the stage. And you can see that the walls have been framed and drywall's going in. Insulation you can see in the back wall. And then the last one I just want to highlight is 29. And that's in the commons. That's the learning stairs. You can see the wood seats going in. So that section on the left, you can begin to visualize it's going to be full of kids, you know, sitting, eating lunch, doing school. And then the people go up and down the stairs on the right-hand side. So just going to be a nice, great space for the school. The CFU projects for 2020, we're just about have them all closed out. And we expect those to be closed out by the end of the year too. The West Albany seismic renovation project's going well, really not much to mention there. I guess at this point I would ask, are there any specific questions from the report? Okay. All right.
Don't see anyone with hands up or questions.
That's the benefit of going after 9:30.
Is that what it is? I need to be thankful for this.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure David's gone after 9:30 several times before now. If not later than that at times. We keep him up very late sometimes. So I'm not seeing any additional questions. So, and there's no actions for us to take on this. So we were just.
Not on this item. However, David has the next two items as well.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to the change orders. Looks like change request number 16 is our first one.
Yes.
Okay.
Change order 16 is for West Albany High School. There's a write-up there for all of those. Are there any questions in regards to any of the individual items included in that change order?
Can you clarify for us on both of these, just so that we have the information? Are these changes in the costs associated all within our regular contingency for this project still?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, they are.
Are there any additional questions from board directors? Not seeing any. Okay.
I have one question, and it's just because I don't know the answer. So when there's a change order request and part of the request, the funding, it says it's being paid for directly by the school. Does that come out of the school's general fund budget, or is that through fundraising? How is that handled, Director Allen?
Well, the answer could be all of the above. At West, I believe it's probably a combination. I know that they were utilizing some of their carryover from last year, their non-staff carryover for some of those projects. I believe that they were using some fundraised dollars or their booster club for some of the others. They're not big ticket items, but they were items that weren't going to be paid for out of the bond, and the school stepped forward and said, this is important to us, and we want to make sure it happens.
Can you clarify for us, maybe David or someone, which pieces those were?
PCO 104.4R, the fixed seating alternative finishes at West Albany Theater. I believe so. There are three components for the seating change for the theater, and some of that, it says, is coming from funds directly by the school. It really doesn't say which account.
Right.
And then some will be through sponsor fundraising. And then I'm looking.
So
I
real
believe.
quick.
Go
Go ahead. If you have it, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just curious. So now that that was brought up, so are these funds that are at the discretion of the school to put towards this kind of a project versus, I mean, what would those funds normally have been used for if they were, for example, carryover funds from stuff for the school? Is it appropriate for those funds to be used for this particular effort versus educational efforts or other things? I mean, I'm not understanding like kind of where that would come from, that they would support this versus this being something that maybe the bond project should be looking at as part of our contingency funds versus having the school put that out. And I see Superintendent Goff had her hand up too, so go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize, Director Allen. And David, I hadn't noticed that in those change orders either. So my wondering is that because I've been in different districts. So has that been a usual and customary approach for us as we've done other projects as well? Or is this a unique circumstance? To Chair Butzner's question, it's new for me to see this, but it may be something that we have done in prior projects and handled in a similar fashion.
It is not, I don't know if I can give you another example. There's probably one at South, but I can't think of one right now. The issue is, for example, in this particular one, during value engineering, the chairs were, the chair arms were originally wood, and then they were made plastic. As far as a value engineering plan along the way, it's not, plastic chair arms are common in auditoriums. It was important for the school that they be wood. So the school said, we'll go ahead and we will utilize our discretionary funds in order to move those from plastic to wood. Again, it's not that it's inappropriate to use bond funds, but that was one of the decisions in a long list of decisions that were made at one point to try and bring the cost of the project down. They weren't fighting, that's not the right word. They weren't contesting the fact that it was a reasonable value engineering proposal to make that swap. They just felt that they wanted to bring that back, and they wanted to utilize their building discretionary funds to do that with. The other piece. And
is it, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so is that a typical, is that a typical way for buildings to have the ability to use their discretionary funds? Do they typically do physical plant improvements with their discretionary funds? Again, I'm thinking as we're building improvements at one site and at another site as well, and we're having a standard of improvement that we build to, do we typically allow then buildings who have additional resources to upgrade based on the resources at their site, or how do we handle that?
Oh, we would have to, well, we certainly have not had any prohibition for it. It's not exactly the same, but I mean, at South, there wasn't a statue as part of the bond project. That was a self-funded project from the school, that fundraised project. So this isn't common. There's not a ton of money that's represented throughout any of this project. That's reflective of that. There were just a few specific things. David, I don't know if it's in this change order or a different one, but there was something about in the auxiliary gym, they wanted their the logo in the gym to be larger than what we had as our standard for the two schools.
Right.
And so they said, well, we really want this different logo. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be more expensive. This is the logo we want. We said, this is what we provided. This is our standard. and they said, okay, well, we'll go ahead and we'll fund the difference. It was $2,000 or $3,000. I mean, we're not talking about, significant amount of money, but we're trying to adhere to the standards. And if a school, either through, their own discretionary funds or through fundraising, if they want to do something different, I mean, we see that in existing buildings too. They may make a change, whether they want to change something to do with their office. Sometimes that would be the district pay for it. Sometimes the schools will pay for it. It all depends on what it is and on how cosmetic it is, as opposed to something that's really a functional need for the school.
Do they not have to go through a process of getting those approved from the district office? Because my assumption would be, even though they have discretionary funds, that those discretionary funds could be used for a multitude of things, just like we had a bond dollar amount that we were budgeted within, and we had to choose certain things to pay for, and then certain things got cut because we didn't have the money to pay for them. And so I'm curious to know, like, what would be the normal process for discretionary funds that say, when the district has decided that it's not important to have that the school can decide that there is that importance over something different within the school, and who makes that decision? Is that a decision? And I'm just asking the question because I don't know, is that a decision that we give to the school administrators to make that decision without any kind of approval from the district? Because I also hear what Superintendent Goff was saying, that if we start doing that, then you have the issue of, and I don't want to call it equity, but you have this issue of, if you have then something you've built at one facility and then the other facility doesn't have those discretionary funds available, and then they have to go with plastic over here, and then this one has wood. And I know this is a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, but it does create kind of that kind of expectation of what things should be going forward. And I would think that's a decision the district would want to make. I venture back to things like, as an example, we had an issue with schools painting their bathroom walls with, fun paint and murals and positive sayings in one of our middle schools, because it was a facilities related thing and it was a building related thing. And that principal in that school at the time kind of got reprimanded for the fact that they did that without having approval. And so I'm trying to figure out where this weighs in. And I hear what you're saying about the dollar amount not being a significant amount. I don't recall seeing in the past places where we've seen, and I apologize too, because I didn't catch it either, where there's been anything other than fundraised dollars, and then where there wasn't fundraised dollars, they asked the district to assist, like with the rest of the statute. So I'm not familiar with this avenue being used in the past, but and maybe we've missed it in the past and I'm just not aware of it. I don't know.
The answer to one of your questions, the funding source being utilized here, the building discretionary funds, those are not approved. Those purchases or expenditures are not approved by the district office, other than ensuring that procurement rules and laws are being followed. But those are truly dollars that were given to the school, the principal, in order to run their school. That's what they would use for copiers. That's what they would use for furniture, computers, or staff, or certain computers. Most computers are provided by the district now. But at any rate, it's utilized for whatever. It could be utilized for a mural that a building might want to put up. It could be utilized for a throw rug in the commons area. So it's utilized for whatever the building deems is the most important use for those funds. These seemed like small and reasonable changes, and that's how they wish to use their discretionary funds.
So Russ, the changes to that, my question was not around the discretionary fund usage, because I think we can say later if we're comfortable with discretionary funds or it needs to be fundraised. But my question was more along, what is the approval process around around physical plant changes? So a throw rug, furniture, computers, and paper are different, right, than paint or permanent fixtures that are attached. This is certainly a permanent improvement done through the bond work. And so, again, I'm asking because I don't know what historically has been the process. So what is the process for that?
Well, because this was bond, I mean, the request went through their group. It went through, HMK, Doug, everybody reviewed it. There was, and no one had an objection to the wood. In this particular case, the example is the wood handles or the wood armrests. In as much as that's what the original spec was for wood armrests. So it wasn't that there was any concern or issue with regards to the request. They were restoring an item that had been value engineered out.
And I apologize for taking us down a rabbit hole. I think my question was simply to, and it just happened to be the first page because I was following along, Kim, with where we were in the board packet. That $9,413. So at the top, when it says, there are change orders in this amount, because it's not being paid for kind of out of the bond, and the change orders, I'm assuming, are coming from the contingency or the project. So is that $9,000 included in the amount of all of the change orders that are happening, but that's not included in the contingency? I guess,
when the invoice for that comes in, we'll code this portion again with a bond code, and 9,000 whatever will be coded with a different code. So yeah, it's part of the change order because the change order is what's given to the contractor to do the work. Within the business office, when it comes to paying the bill, we'll split the bill between two funds.
That makes sense. Thank you. Because at first I thought, would it be a change order then because it's not being paid for out of the bond? Thank you.
Any other questions about change order 16?
Okay. So we, it looks like at this point are looking for a motion to approve this one, unless there's a need for some reason for more information to come back to us at another time. So I'm not sure where folks are at with that, but I'll throw that out there.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve change order number 16 in the amount of $46,738.01 to be awarded to Girding Builders.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to approve change order number 16 in the amount of $46,738.01 to Girding Builders. Director Ward.
I know you asked before the motion was on the table.
Would you rather?
I think I would just be more Russ, does this have to be approved tonight?
David, can we bring this back at the next board meeting?
Yes.
That's not till January.
Yeah, because I mean, it's yes, you can wait.
Okay. So I think there were some things that were just kind of caught right here as we were reviewing it, that maybe we would feel more comfortable having a little more time to digest. So at this point, I would vote nay.
Okay, thank you. Director Aganaga.
I understand, Director Ward. It feels like we kind of went all over tonight, but I will vote yay.
Okay. Director Roach.
Would it be out of procedure to make a motion to table this motion?
At this point, there's already a motion on the table. So if you are interested in something other than what's been moved for, then you would look at voting nay.
Thank you. Nay.
Thank you. Vice Chair Thompson.
I'm a vote nay.
Okay. And I am also going to vote nay. I had posed the question to see where other directors were at, whether they felt like we needed more information, thinking that maybe I was the only one feeling that way. So I apologize for that, but it sounds like that motion has not passed, and based on the fact that there were enough questions posed tonight as far as the process, and I think our comfort with that process and ensuring that it was all appropriate. And so we would like to have an opportunity to maybe ask some of those questions and get some more information. So we will look to have that come back at our next meeting. And so I'm assuming questions and comments can be sent to Director Allen and Assistant Superintendent and Superintendent, so that they have those from the board to be able to discuss at the district level. So please feel free to do that and ask those questions. I think you've gotten some of them tonight, so we probably know where to start on some of that. Okay, that takes us to change order number 17. And we'll pull this one up here.
Change order 17 is for the seismic project and is within the contingency.
Thank you. You know that's going to always be my question, right?
Yes. Yes.
I almost think that I look for it every time in the document, thinking maybe it's going to be there, and I don't know if it's appropriate for it to be in there, or maybe it can be included. I'm not sure.
I will make sure that we begin to include it.
Okay, because I always look and then I end up asking anyway. All right, we're there. So this is the hallway of the gym and north wall of the gym. And you guys will see some things of their mezzanine.
These were unforeseen conditions.
I'm gonna ask the question just to make sure there's nothing in here similar to the last one. These are all things that are being paid for out of the bond funds, it looks like.
Yes, out of the seismic grant.
Seismic grant funds, thank you. Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Are there any questions from board directors on this one? I'm not seeing any. Okay. So again, we will entertain a motion for change order number 17.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve change order number 17 in the amount of $24,186.59 to be awarded to Girding Builders.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table to approve change order number 17 in the amount of $24,186.59 to Girding Builders. Director Ward.
Aye.
Director Aganaga.
Aye.
Director Roach.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So that one has approved unanimously. All right. And I think, David, you are off the hook for tonight.
Okay.
With the exceptions
Thank
of it
you all.
sounds like we'll have questions coming your way.
Okay, we'll be ready to answer them.
Perfect.
Have a great night.
Thank you, you too. All right, let's see. And I just wanted to mention something as I'm moving in board book on to new business and the board policies. Director Roach, I know you posed a question of me in an email, so I'm just going to answer you so you know and other people know. If I'm leading and you click the little button that says follow the leader, then you don't control where it goes. If you choose not to follow the leader, which some people choose not to do because I'm a little all over the place, you can navigate however you want. And I think that's what you've been doing because you weren't following where I was at. You were navigating on your own. Yes.
I thought I had moved your whole paper down and
I probably would have said, whoa, who's doing that?
Okay,
so no, you are perfectly fine.
Thank
and that's
you.
a good question to ask. And I apologize because I know it's new for you too. So I appreciate you asking the question, but you are perfectly fine to navigate yourself through this however you would like.
Thank you.
So, all right, we have board policy KL, and I believe this was Superintendent Goff had this one. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Butzner. So you have before you for first reading tonight, Board Policy KL. This is the board policy update that is recommended from the Oregon School Boards Association. They actually recommended one of two versions. We selected the version that is most similar to the version that we currently have, while still providing the specifics that Oregon School Boards Association is recommending within their updates. You will note that it references a number of existing policies that we do have currently. Many of those policies have been recently updated. Some will be updated during our board policy work that begins in January. There are specifics within the complaint procedure regarding the fact that the complaint needs to be in writing and signed, and goes to the lowest level in the beginning, and kind of works its way up through the system if the complainant is dissatisfied with the results of the resolution of the concern. There are pieces in here that allow for mediation to be selected as a potential resolution to any matter that's brought before for a complaint. And in association with this board policy KL, you will see also at the very end of our agenda tonight that there is a copy of the administrative regulation that would accompany policy KL. KL is here for your review so that you can ask questions and review prior to our next meeting.
I had a couple of things. One on this one in particular, and I think it's more with the AR, because I was just looking through the actual policy itself to see. In the AR, it addresses the fact that it needs to be done in written form and signed.
That's correct. I misspoke. It is in the AR.
It is in the AR, not here. Okay. So if in the AR that is the case, when I was reading the AR earlier, it specifies that at the earlier points, but it does not specify how and what should be presented to the board if it gets to that point. And I think that it should designate still the same process, that the board would be looking for a written request and a written and signed appeal request, because ours would be an appeal at that point. So I would love to see that language added. And I know that there are some policies that I've seen from OSBA around this same issue, where they have started to include addressing the fact that they would not accept anonymous complaints, because they don't often have a way to follow up on something that comes in an anonymous format. And so I'd be curious to know if we can reach out to OSBA and see what their recommendations are around that particular topic before we finalize it.
Sorry, Madam Chair, you got real quiet.
Oh, sorry, on what part? All of it?
Yeah, I mean, I could hear it, but it was super quiet.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I feel like I'm yelling, so I'm not sure what happened. But I would like to see the anonymous piece just looked into with OSBA to see what their recommendations are on that right now. And if they are having that added or not added. I know we probably referred to them for this content, but I'd like to see, I know there's some that are including it, and I'd like to see how that's being included if possible.
Okay.
Are there other, I have a couple other things, but if anyone else has something first, I would be happy to let you guys provide comments or questions. Director Aganaga.
Is there a resource that a parent or guardian can reach at the district level that would support them in maybe they weren't able to write, or they need interpretive services. Just want to make sure, when people read KL, that there is.
That's a great point, and I super appreciate that. I know both in the CIA and the Welcome Center, and actually utilizing one of our staff in human resources, they've helped parents do the actual writing, and they've also helped with interpretation and writing for complaints. And so a great question and a great point.
And I do know that I can speak to the fact that I know the written and signed portion has been in OSBA's recommended language, so that it's in that formal process. And I would assume we would assist where we can if somebody needed it. Yeah. So I want to add here, because I think it's a good place to point out. The board actually just recently received, that I received on behalf of the board, a letter that related to work within the district, and it was anonymous in nature and didn't have enough information that we could even do anything with. So I think it is important that we get this policy out there and are clear about the avenues that people have to be able to submit letters or complaints or issues to us. And so I'm glad to see that we're updating this, because it did come up even recently, where we received a letter that just didn't have enough information for us to even be able to act on. And we have many avenues, and right now we've got feedback we're asking for via surveys. We've got these processes, and I think it's through these practices and policies and procedures that we're putting in place that we provide the transparency and the ability to work with people and collaborate to make the changes that we need to make. And I think it's important that they go through these steps as much as possible. So as board members, it's important for us to make sure that we direct people when we're hearing about things like this to this policy, and that they follow the process, because it is there for that reason, and it really should be at the lowest step first, and work its way through, so that we can work together to get through these issues. So as board members, if you hear of things that people have concerns with, please direct them to this. And I think that's super important. And we tend to see this a lot, where we get stuff, but they don't necessarily go the right direction first. And so I think that's important as we move forward too. So any other questions or comments about this one? I know it'll come back as old business next time. Or will you have changes? Go ahead, Superintendent.
Yeah, I think to Director Aganaga's point as well, and there we do have an avenue for anonymous feedback right now. So we have an anonymous staff. It's a digital suggestion box with that's anonymous, and we do receive emails, probably 2 to 4 a day, asking us to consider this or think about that, or this was frustrating when you did such and such. And that has been, I think, really helpful. Assistant Superintendent Harlan and I review those every day, and then we pass those on to the union leadership as well. So, and that's staff from at any level, from any roles. And so that is another way it does. So we do have a need internally for that anonymous feedback, is what I was going to share.
For sure. Okay. Nothing else from the group on this one? All right. Next on our list was the Sodexo contract, and this was Director Allen bringing a report, it looks like. I'm going to pull that up here too.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. I was asked to bring information relative to our current arrangement with regards to the provision of nutrition services in the district. I'm not going to reiterate everything that's in the packet. You have an awful lot of information with regards to history. You have information about how a food service management company is selected, how they're compensated, some information specific to our arrangement with Sodexo for the last several years, arguments for and against utilizing a FSMC or going what's referred to as self-op or self-operating. You have some of the information from existing contracts as well as the existing renewal. The reason why it says from existing contract is that that document is like 400 pages long. I didn't think you wanted all of that in your packet, so I just tried to pick out the pieces that you might find that might be of interest to you. So again, the intent here is to provide you a lot of information as to what's going on. While it's new business this evening and it's not old business, we did provide for you what the staff recommendation will be in the future, in that we have one more year on our contract with Sodexo available to us. Now we're in December, we're in COVID, there's a lot going on. Now does not seem to be the time to be going through that study, both a full whether it's studying whether or not it's better to go self-op or contract out. And then with the contracting out, there's a major putting together the RFP, the request for proposal, is a major undertaking. So when this comes back, we'll be bringing back with information relative to the renewal, and it would be staff's recommendation for now to renew for that last year. And then in the fall of 2021, at the board's discretion, we can look at self-op. If it's contract out, there'll be a full process with an RFP. Board members could participate in the selection process of reviewing the RFPs. At any rate, there'll be a plethora of opportunities then to figure out the best path forward.
Thank you for putting that all together. I know some of our questions were surrounding the fact that I think we knew the contract was probably coming due. And based on some of the feedback we as board members have gotten from the community and families, and also some of the things that we've heard from some of the districts that are actually using the self-funded, options, we were, I think, interested in knowing if we were going to plan any kind of evaluation or kind of looking into what it would look like to do a self-funded option versus using one of the vendors that are there now, and what that looks like overall cost differences, what that looks like to the quality of food, all of that. And I do think that I understand where the staff recommendations are coming from in the middle of COVID. It would be very hard for us to probably do that much of an assessment. So maybe continuing a contract for 1 year gives us the time to be able to invest. But my hope would be that we would have a plan for figuring out those options and providing kind of a really thorough review of what our options would look like and what the costs would be and what we would get provided, what the challenges would be, so that we have a really clear understanding of all of that up front. I'm assuming that will take some time, and it's time that we maybe don't have to invest that much in what we have between now and the time the contract ends. But
yes, the study itself, and then if the determination was to do a self-op, I mean, there's an awful lot of investment in trying to flip that over, and our contract is only through June 30th. So there's a lot of reasons why this is not the ideal time in order to do that. But with the foreknowledge, that's something that can be worked on over the summer for a full study in the fall, so that it can be done well in advance of when decisions have to be made.
So coming back as old business for us, would that be us with a request for or approving the staff recommendation to continue the contract for another year but with the understanding that we would also start into the study/information process now, so that we give ourselves enough time to be able to do the study, and then also, if we decide to make a change, have the time to transition.
That is a very long motion.
I know. So I'm trying to figure out what you would need from us in the next meeting.
Yes, that's fine. Whether it's the next meeting or the second meeting in January, as part of our business, what we'll be bringing back will be the information for the renewal. Certainly, as part of that conversation, the board is already, I think, providing direction to the district. And maybe it'd be good to have it in the form of a motion to ensure that we are, it's the entire board that's has the desire. So yes, we'll be looking, I guess from that perspective, we'll be looking for two motions from the board. One would be the renewal for the Sodexo contract for 1 more year. And then a second motion in order to direct staff to go through the exercise of looking at self-op as opposed to FSMC.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
Well, thank you for bringing this on our agenda tonight. I appreciate it. This is something I've been asking since the night I was sworn in. This is not new business to me. This is the elected board member asking, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of my top priorities. I told Kim one of my biggest fears was by the time the district brings it to us, it'll be time to renew. And this is kind of what's happening. I have asked for this for quite a while. We've talked about it in one-on-ones. And I don't know, COVID is not going away anytime soon, when we're gonna have to get into vaccinations and enforcing and not enforcing in cohorts. I feel sorry for our superintendent and her staff, because there's always a fire or a bond or whatever going on. I would ask other board members to maybe just start a light, not the full spectrum going out and bidding the process, but asking the district to start a light study of neighboring districts like Eugene and Bethel and Beaverton, districts our size that have switched out of the Sodexo world and into their own, where they've actually been very profitable and they've actually been able to provide foods that are within 50 miles of their school. And then bring in educational materials that students are growing some of the food. So I would ask my fellow board members to join me in asking the district to have them start a light version. I understand we are going to renew their 1-year contract most likely, but I don't want to kick this can farther down the road. Madam Chair.
Okay. Being that it's presented as new business tonight, it typically would come back for us as old business to vote on and make motions on at our next meeting. I'm not sure that between now and the next meeting, it would give some of our board members an opportunity to maybe ask some questions they haven't had, or review the materials that were provided to be able to feel comfortable in doing that. So I would recommend we go ahead and plan to have that be a motion that's on the table for our next meeting that we talked about. We have 2, one would be approving and then one would be in regards to our request as a group, because again, that comes forward at the request of the entire board. And if there's a motion we want to make at that point, then I think we can do that at our next meeting. And I don't think that's going to impact our timelines. We're pretty much in the holidays and the end of the year anyway. So between now and our next meeting, I think it would give the board members a chance to look over everything that they need to. And I appreciate the fact that this is an issue. And I think that some of it has been, I don't think a 1-year extension is our normal contract. Our contracts have been significantly longer. So what we're looking at is just a kind of a 1-year extension to give us the opportunity. So we're not looking at doing a long-term addition, which we also appreciate based on the fact that, we want
Typically, when we go out for an RFP, typically the first contract is for 3 years with an option of up to 2 one-year extensions.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's what I was looking for, is what your comments were. I appreciate it.
Yeah. If that works, I think we bring it back to our next meeting. And then if there are questions between now and the time of our next meeting, I would just recommend board directors reach out to Director Allen and Superintendent Goff and get those questions posed if you're questioning whether you want to approve or not approve the district moving in that direction. And then also for the 1-year extension. Okay. So we'll plan for that at our next meeting. No other comments or questions on this one? Thank you again, Russ, for providing us with that update. I know we weren't sure even when the contract was up, so having some of the additional history is helpful as well. All right, we are moving into the school bus replacement needs. This is also new business, and Director Allen, you have this one as well.
I do, and I have been informed that Director Buttram is also with us. And so that's pretty exciting stuff. So, but I'll go ahead and I'll introduce it. He can answer any questions that you might have.
I don't see him on our screen yet.
He is going to be so tired tomorrow morning if he is here with us tonight.
Well, I didn't think he was, I hadn't asked him to be around. He did it on his own. And so I'm not sure about him coming on, but at any rate, he may be here for questions. I know he's out there somewhere in virtual land. So you have, every year we come to the board around this time to talk about bus replacements. And you could see in the information with regards to the fact that it's normally 5 or 6 buses. Given the size of our fleet, we need to replace 5 to 6 buses each year in order to, you generally want to replace your buses by the time they're about 15 years old. But again, there's also a mileage plays a role in there too. But a good rule of thumb is 15 years. And in order to maintain our fleet, that'd be every 5 to 6 years. In the packet is a pretty detailed list of where all of our buses are and where if they're green, yellow, red, how they would be replaced. This year, we are in a unique situation where we do not need to purchase as many buses. Obviously, our buses have been receiving much fewer mileage. That doesn't sound right. Much less mileage. I think that sounds better. And again, mileage and age, they both play a role. So we're able to reduce it from 5 or 6 buses to 4. And actually, the district will only be paying for 3. We have an opportunity with a partnership of CELMET and the Oregon Department of Energy, or some Oregon department, or DEQ, there it is, Department of Environmental Quality, Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, to replace a 4th bus. So there would be 3 buses that would be district funded and 1 bus that would be out of this grant that we'd be receiving from the Department of Environmental Quality. For those of you that may not remember how this works, the buses are purchased out of a bus replacement fund. So this amount is not the amount that it would cost the district. The buses are reimbursed by the state reimburses us 70% of the cost of the buses. They do it over a 10-year depreciation, however. So the depreciation money that comes from the state goes into that bus replacement fund. It's actually required by law that it go into the bus replacement fund. So it goes there. The district the district transfer each year is just making up whatever difference is needed. If we're on the buses that we retire, we also try and sell them and make whatever money we can off of them. We usually get something that will also go into the bus replacement fund. So we do everything we can within the bus replacement fund to fund the buses prior to asking the general fund for money. The last set for many years now, the annual transfer from the general fund has been $95,000. I haven't calculated what it would be next year, but given the size of this purchase, it certainly there would not need to be any increase. If anything, there would be a decrease in the amount of money that would need to be transferred to the bus replacement fund. So anyway, that's probably more information than you needed or wanted. and I will answer any questions. And I know that Mr. Budrum is at least listening and can connect if you have a question that I'm unable to answer.
I just had one quick question. So I noticed on the fleet, there were 4 listed with the ages and the mileage. And the 4th one was significantly lower in mileage and was at the 12-year range, which is lower of the age ranges. Is there a need for that one to be replaced now, meaning that
yes,
by the time we went a year out, it would exceed mileage or something? Or what, is there an issue with that particular bus that's different than, I'm looking at the 18-year-old one with 200,000 miles and wondering
I believe
what the difference is.
I believe we addressed it somewhere in this memo, but the answer to your question, it may not be there. I'd have to look. I believe it was. Oh yes, it says bus 77 would not normally have been included this year for replacement. The problem is the requirement from the grant that we're getting from the state to replace a bus. The requirement is that the bus had to have years of life remaining. Therefore, by replacing a new cleaner diesel bus is reducing emissions. So we picked a bus that met the criteria, that's still older, but it still met the criteria for the grant. Yes, under normal circumstances, we would have held on to bus 77 longer.
But we have to give that one up when we do the replacement.
Yes.
It's not something we can hang on to.
No, because again, the goal of the grant is to reduce emissions.
Gotcha.
So we're picking a bus that would still have some life left. It met the requirements of the grant. And by putting a brand new diesel bus on that has better emissions, we're fulfilling the grant requirement of reducing emissions.
And it met that criteria more than the 2 that got removed from the list, because there were originally 6, right, that were maybe looked at.
Well, normally we would look at 6. Again, we were able to not have to look at as many this year because mileage is way down.
Mileage. Okay.
If not for the grant, it is true that there would probably be a 4th bus on there that we would be requesting that would be more along the line. So we are holding on to a bus maybe a little bit longer than we might otherwise.
Okay.
But again, we want to make sure we have the opportunity to take advantage of the grant.
Okay. Are there other questions from board directors? So again, this is new business, so first time we're seeing it. And if you have questions or want to review things, we have some time to do that. It'll come back as old business on our next meeting agenda. So questions again can be sent to Director Alvin.
And then I'll make sure that Supervisor Buttram gets looped in.
Perfect.
And thank you, Russ, for hanging out with us this evening. I know you're watching along at home.
Great. Well, that brings us, I believe, to the end of our agenda here. And we have dates of interest for the school board. We have pre-planning on the 18th with Director Ward and myself. And then we have our regular school board meetings in January on the 11th and the 25th. And then we have a work session, which will be a follow-up on our equity trainings on the 20th of January. And then we have a bond oversight committee meeting for those that want to attend on the 28th. So we have just about something every week in January if we want. Superintendent Goff.
Yes, I was just going to, for the sake of our newest board member, and just as a reminder for all board members, that pre-planning is when the board chair and vice chair meet with Assistant Superintendent Harlan and I to review the proposals that other board members have to be placed on the agenda, of items to be placed on the agenda, and then from there shape the future board meeting agenda. So if you have items that you are interested in placing on the agenda, the appropriate people to talk to is board chair or vice chair, and then that gets discussed at pre-planning.
And we do alternate that. So it is the board chair and vice chair every other meeting, and then the other board directors each rotate in to the meetings in between for planning purposes. So you will be in that rotation as well, Director Roach. We will get that schedule out if you don't have it already. Assistant Superintendent Harlan has her finger up.
And I will rely on Director Larry and defer to him about information if this isn't correct, but I believe that we may need a work session beforehand on January 11th.
Is that a work session or a
It would be an executive session
An
if it
exec
needs
session.
to be. Mhm.
Yes. We are working on an MOU with our associations related to starting in hybrid. And so we would want to discuss that MOU in exec session before the board were to act on it.
And do we think that'll happen on the 11th meeting?
That's a very optimistic timeline, not so much for us, but for the associations. But that's our hope because, you know, we're getting ready to at least we're preparing to be ready to jump into hybrid as soon as we are able to do so. So we would need to get that. We would need to get that done. We'll know by the end of this week whether that's on the ticket or not, I believe.
So the 11th would be a good placeholder because the earliest that we can see elementary students returning themselves in the hybrid model at this point now would be January 14th, given the information I addressed earlier. So really, even if we were to move that a week later, the 11th would be the place you'd want to have the executive session to get that taken care of.
Okay. So I guess just have Chris put out that information if we need to add that, and board members will be prepared to see that come through. And usually those executive sessions will be from 6 to 7, right before 7. We'll take a quick break in between, but we usually start those at 6 unless we, for some reason, the topic needs more. But usually those are pretty good timing from 6 to 7. Okay. Any other for the good of the order before we adjourn? All right. Thank you all. We are adjourning our meeting at 10:31 p.m. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Good night. We don't always